This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at thebatmanuniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
Gotham City, like any other large metropolis, abounds in girls of all shapes and sizes. Debutantes, nurses, stenographers, and librarians.
Gotham City Library, Miss Gordon speaking.
Lopez hair removal. This is Jose.
Holy transformation. 1 minute, plain Barbara Gordon, librarian and Commissioner Gordon's daughter. And the next minute, something new has been added. Batgirl, modeled after her idol, Batman.
Holy apparition! No, Boy Wonder, I'm Batgirl. You are no longer alone, Capes Crusaders.
It took me 3 years to track down the Jade Gato, and 3 more to figure out how to steal it.
Funny, it only took me 10 minutes to figure out how to snatch it back. No matter how you do it, crime doesn't pay girls.
It's November. It's not Halloween. This guy isn't dressing up. He really is a priest. This is my former work husband, my ex-work husband of 8 years, taught Latin with me, and a priest, an Anglican priest. So
that's also true.
This will be my first priest and maybe my only one, but is my dear friend, Father Sean McDermott, to come on. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome.
This is probably one of the best and highest honors that I have ever received. The other one was talking at that the school that we used to teach at, the student retreat, which they asked me back to. It's like, oh man, highest honors. And now I get to come on this. And by the way, happy birthday month.
Thank you so much for remembering.
We share it. Yes.
We do share it. Yeah, we're just 7 days off, aren't we?
You didn't remember
That's a lie.
mine.
Aren't we 7 days off from each other?
Yep. You're 7 days older than I am.
Yeah. Can you believe it? Oh, man. You know, you are not far from my mind. I've played Kiss, Marry, Kill with other people many times, and you often are one of the rounds, and you've only been killed off once. Alana Speth is the only person who's killed you off.
Everyone else, she knows better than to marry a priest. I feel like the priest should always get killed off. Like that's our role.
That's interesting.
Should always get killed. I mean, yeah, go for it.
Sacrifice. Yes.
Oh, then we get to be martyrs. It's even better in our little narcissistic complexes. This is great.
Oh my goodness. Well, welcome. So we have Latin in common. We have Roman history in common. And this is the main reason why I wanted you to come on here. But also I thought it'd be fun. You were a little bit nervous, but I said, Sam Heath was on here twice. He survived. So I feel like I've got good faith in you.
All right. I would love, though, for the people who actually listen to this to tell me if I'm better than Heath Barr.
Oh,
in the end.
Yes.
I don't want to just do it. I want to do it better.
Okay.
Better than him.
Okay. Well, I've set you up with an interesting story, and I'm also going to set you up with some controversial images and a topic at the beginning about a priest that Donovan and I encountered a long time ago.
Where is this? Where is it from?
It's from Batgirl. So the same comic that we're reading, but way back, issue 15 in 2000. And we're reading 30, 31, 32. So a year and a half ago or prior to this. So what is your comic history? Do you have any history with comics?
Look at this.
Or even, television? Well, I just want to set the groundwork.
I know, but you're just laughing at me before you even starting. It's like, oh, you're a comic virgin. Oh, no. No, I actually do have a comic background, which I don't think you know about. When I was in middle school, and then I think maybe ninth grade, I got obsessed with this comic called Groo. Groo.
Yes.
And it was like, I could never afford Asterix. And so it was like the cheap Asterix. And that's what I got into. I even went to comic book shops and I would buy them. So I have something. I have a groundwork and I loved it. And I don't know what happened to them. I think my mom probably threw them away.
What if they were worth a great deal?
Does anyone read them anymore? Anyone?
Groo? I think Groo's still around.
Still going?
I think so.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's not in my wheelhouse, but I believe so.
Well, see, I have something there. That's good.
You got to step up on me. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You could have filled many coffers with that had you sold that collection.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that big, but yes, that is my only real comic. Oh, and I will say right now in my house, which is filled because I have 3 young boys and 1 little girl, filled with Tintins. Okay. And now we get Asterixes from the library because they're still too expensive, but we get them from the library. And so that's my comic background now. Okay.
Any
DC,
films?
Marvel, not so much.
Yeah. Before we started recording Friends, he said, what do I need to know about Batgirl and Marvel? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
That was just to get you going.
I know.
Movies, I know. No.
Okay.
No.
I just want to set the stage. So basically, listeners, what I'm doing to him is what Professor Allen did to me way back when he brought me on to just look at one random issue from a series I've never read. So that's what we're doing here. Before we even get into that, though, let us do our Find Your Joy segment, which is also known as Shag's Mac and Cheese of Comfort and Joy. So we've had some tough times, of course, but we tried to rise above it. So what sorts of things have you and maybe you and your family been doing that have kept you joyful in these tough times?
I would say for me, in the past year, it's been bike riding. A lot of bike riding. And one of my best bike rides, I was going through town and I was riding down and I saw this little girl running up the sidewalk. It's like, that's not a little girl, that's Stella, and I got to run into Stella, which was incredible. So my project this summer, and then in previous a little bit of time, was to ride every single street in Charlottesville. Oh, wow. And so I got printed out a map and every morning I would go out. I had to do it 5:30 to 6:30, only 1 hour rides. And you have to start at my house and leave and go ride as much as you can and then come back. And so there's a lot of, riding the same roads and back and forth. But I finished it just a few weeks ago. And so my map now is all black, all the roads now I got to mark out, and I've ridden every single road in Charlottesville.
So it was a real blessing then that we ran into each other, because any other day you could have been
I would have been
else.
Across town. Totally. Yeah. Right.
Did you ever get lost in this journey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Even and our town's not that big, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not, but it does have a lot of twisty roads. And then I even found a road that you can't drive on and that it's not even paved. It's steps down into a grass yard.
Oh, interesting.
And it's an official road on our map.
Official.
It is.
So what did you do?
Official.
You picked up your bike.
I was on a
and walked
bike,
down?
so I just rode it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I stepped down the stairs and then I rode the grass and kept going. It was great.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's
cool spots.
super exciting. That's like a really inventive thing that I've not heard of anyone doing, but definitely a way to get to know your city better.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was great.
Very cool. So I went to New York City the end of October and hung out with Claire.
Whoa.
Yeah. So So she is a grad student now at Columbia.
Yeah, right.
So we hung out. We reminisced, of course, about you. And we went to see the musical Six, which is about Henry VIII's 6 wives.
Oh, cool.
And it's like in the format of this really explosive concert, high energy the entire time. It was really great.
Whoa, I got to see that.
Yeah. Or just listen to the soundtrack, which is easy to find on Spotify, and you'll get a good sense of what that is. I love that the fall temperatures are finally fall-like, and
Except
chilly.
today.
Except for today. Yeah, this week
75
has been weird. Yeah, that's been bizarre. NCAA women's soccer tournament is starting up. Maybe
First round, you got UVA won, right?
First round's on Friday.
Oh, okay. That was
yet,
the other. That was the last game.
So here's hoping. And then, of course, as you said, it's our B-Day month. So it's always.
I know. It's the best.
I know. Yeah. I do a nice little countdown until we get to it.
Do your listeners send you gifts?
I've gotten gifts from people, but no.
Okay, good. Because I will tell you, having worked with Stella for a long time, she was always really jealous that all the students gave me gifts because I would announce, I would like basically make this mandatory in my classes. So Stella loves gifts. Send them to her. Send her a gift. She loves them. November 21st.
There used to be a pretty bad competition, wasn't there? When the holidays came around, like who got the most gifts from students?
I usually lost that one actually. But
did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably
I don't think parents liked me. I think students did. But
that's interesting though.
They could care less about Latin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is, yes, it's a hate-love relationship. Okay, so before we get into our story, if listeners remember way back when, there was an issue of Barbara Gordon. I don't even know which picture I should use. There was an issue of, I said Barbara Gordon, of Cassandra Cain Batgirl, where this man develops a ray gun of some sort and is experimenting on different people to see how long it would take them to kill, basically. So he puts them in some sort of scenario. You can't tell what the scenario is. You just have the outcome of someone or multiple people are dead. And he experimented with a soldier, a priest, and Cassandra. And each of them had varying degrees. So I remember when I was doing this with Donovan, I actually wondered about the priest. The priest took an hour. That's how long the scenario round went in his head before he actually killed. And he killed multiple people. I think the soldier was maybe like 15 minutes and then Cassandra was like a matter of seconds, which was the whole point of the story. But
no, the soldier was an hour.
Oh, how long was
the soldier was hours. The priest was 1 hour.
Oh.
And then Cassandra was a heartbeat.
A heartbeat. Okay. Thank you. You have that.
Great line.
Oh, that's actually, that is even worse because I would imagine the soldier would be a less amount of time just because they're not killing machines, but they're just used to those sorts of scenarios.
I think that was the point. Yeah. I think it was throwing the priest on the bus a little bit there, but at the same time, we think about death a lot. So
yeah, I guess that's true. So I don't even know what sorts of questions, because I don't want to put you on the spot, but I did want to what are your thoughts on this? Would there be any realistic scenarios that you could see this happening? Is an hour realistic? I don't know. So I guess I am putting you on the spot. And then, of course, I know you have some things to say about his vestments as well, which I have no.
This is just so good. I would love to find these vestments. I'll tell you that. They are really styling. And of course, there are awful, evil priests out there in the world. So no, of course you can find a priest who would kill within an hour. You would kill in a minute. I think the more important thing though, is actually how they write the guy. Is it a doctor who's sending this laser beam?
He's some sort of mad scientist.
Yeah. So this mad scientist, when he does it, I don't have it up, but if I can remember it correctly, what's going on is that he has this laser which affects the frontal cortex, as he says, and then Batgirl like whops in the head and says, "Speak English." And then he says, "Oh, it makes you. It determines your will to murder." And what he's interested in then is how they qualify it. How do they make it right in their mind? Well, the only problem with that within traditional Catholic theology is that if someone actually did have the power, that's it. Thank you, Stella.
You're welcome.
Yeah, he says it makes you kill, makes you decide to kill. Okay, that means that he has taken over your will. And at that point, justification of it is then not really responsible. The person's not responsible if their will has already been taken over. And then if their will is taken over, they're not responsible for it. It's ridiculous. And so in some sense, like, yeah, of course, people would kill if you take over their will and it makes you decide to kill. It's a little nonsensical, though, at that point, because within Catholic theology, the moral component of the murder has been taken away. There's no culpability anymore if this mad scientist has made you decide to kill. And so in some ways, then, okay, I think the other point was then he said, like, the priest used religion as a means of murder.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, people use all sorts of things for murder. I mean, they, like you hear these stories about people who have road rage and kill because someone stopped at a light too soon. And of course he can use religion to kill. People have done it throughout all of history. It's awful, but it happens. And so this priest can do it. Yeah. But if the priest actually decided to do that and had a will and intentionally murdered for religion, that would be considered a mortal sin. That's awful. And he wouldn't be, he would be damned for that in a sense. He could still be forgiven, but he would be judged for that sin. That's awful. But in this sense, the guy's taking over his mind. So he's not really culpable in that sense.
Yeah.
Can we talk about his vestments though?
Yes.
They're awesome. It's like a bathrobe with crosses on it and it looks satiny, and then has like these cool other like elbow patches things. And then he's wearing a pectoral cross, which, by the way, Stella, only bishops wear pectoral crosses, or they're only allowed to. So now you have like, yeah, exactly. So now you have like this bishop guy, maybe is a canon. Maybe that's like a special canon, a Roman Catholic canon, which is a special title that you can get. But it is bizarre. I love his revolver, and I love that he still blesses their soul when he, shoots this massive gun in their face. But not realistic. Sorry.
Okay, sounds good. Do you think this just goes to show that religion overall is not portrayed well in other forms of media? Do you think that's just like, oh, it's just another thing?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think it's just like a really easy trope to play with, and it's fun to play with. I would just wish that people would have more fun with it, which would mean like do it right. There's lots of things you should make fun of in religion, and do it. And we shouldn't be like scared of that sort of thing. That's kind of what is like the nice challenge.
Yeah.
But do it well. Come on. Don't. Yeah. But if anyone can find that vestment, I would love to wear that. That would be fun.
Oh my gosh. Probably a Halloween costume.
Yeah, exactly. That's what someone said. I was buying something at the store a couple of days ago, and the checkout person was like, well, I really like your costume.
Oh no.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh geez. Wait,
I don't even think she knew.
Them.
No, I mean, I don't even think she knew what it was.
Oh, interesting.
She was more like saying like, I like your style. Like, and I didn't really get that. It's like, it's not I don't know.
Were you actually out and about before Halloween?
No, it wasn't even on Halloween. It was just a random day. It was recently. Yeah. Well, I guess Halloween's been recent too, but.
Interesting. Wow.
Strange things.
Yeah.
As a priest.
That's not my thinking. Whenever I see people in the really long garbs that always remind me of the Matrix. I think
cassocks. Yeah.
Yeah. I see them out and about sometimes in the hospital, but I've yet to go up to anyone and say, do you know Father Sean?
You might see me in my cassock. That would be, I'm sorry I didn't wear it tonight.
That's okay. The color, I think, makes it for sure.
Well, you see it. Yeah, it's still in the cassock, but yeah.
I think, yeah.
Anyways.
So I hope everyone believes that you're an actual priest on this show. I told someone I was having a priest on, and he's like, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Oh, you'll find out."
Yeah, so I can't give absolutions through the screen.
That would be crazy.
Nothing else. That would be
you,
crazy, right?
Could you though during
No.
COVID? Not even during COVID. So there weren't extreme situations.
You can't do it virtually. No, the extreme
Wow.
situation would be the extreme grace of God, because God can act extraordinarily, but he's not going to take the ordinary act, which is being in the same physical place as a priest to receive absolution, and then change it into like virtual stuff, or like send the precious blood of Christ through the computer. That's ridiculous.
Oh gosh.
Oh, but there was some weird things going on during COVID tide. I mean, it was,
I bet there was. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. And then just for Sean, I wore a shirt that he had created, which has a goat on it.
Yes. Like Te Pluribus Goddess says. Does that one glow in the dark like our donut one?
This one did not glow in the dark.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. We made that donut one that glowed in the dark. Yes. That was awesome.
I wear that sometimes in the hospital. And so when I go into patients' rooms and it's like really dark, I wonder what they think of, like, there's this orb floating towards me. Hopefully it's not like someone with dementia that's like really concerned, but
yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. I think that's it for our warm up. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's hit this.
Okay. So we're doing an arc of Batgirl. It's going to be 30, 31, and 32. And I think everyone will quickly realize why Sean is on. I've already said, because there's lots of Roman stuff. And we're going to pull it apart. We're going to be those people where we kind of look at the history as much as we can. Look at the history. We're going to nerd out. Yeah. And see whether Chuck Dixon did an admirable job or not. Okay, so I'm going to give the synopses for all three of them, and then we'll dive into the different issues. So, Batgirl number 30, subtitle Legion of the Lost, September 2002 cover date. Writer Chuck Dixon, penciler Damian Scott, inker Klaus Janson, colorist Jason Wright, and digital Chameleon. 3 days ago in Ivy Town, billionaire financier Bartram Fletcher was killed by 3 arrows. Oracle and Batgirl watch a video of the murder, and Batgirl identifies the unknown killer as an assassin, though she is not sure whether it was a murder or a message. She suits up to investigate as a second man wearing a ring with the insignia of the lost 9th Legion, there you go, of Rome, is killed by 3 arrows. She comes across Connor Hawke, who she believes is the killer because he has a bow. He tries to convince her that he is on the trail of the murder cult too, but she fights him and only stops when Eddie Fires punches her. Batgirl pretends to be unconscious as the men talk, their private conversation proving the truth of Connor's claims, and she says she will help them. A member of the 9th Legion reports to Agrippina, unknown whether it's elder or younger, that he was followed by 2 men. She declares that they will kill them. This goes to Batgirl 31, the Cataphracts, which we'll talk about as well. October 2002 cover date, writer Chuck Dixon, penciler Damian Scott, inker Wade Vaughn, Grawbadger, and then colorist Jason Wright and digital Chameleon. Using a pizza van and delivery man disguise, members of the 9th Legion go around Gotham City, killing off members. Jack Drake, however, is not at home, and they move on to the next target while Batgirl takes Connor Hawke and Eddie Fires to her Batcave. She contacts Batman, who intimidates Eddie into giving up his guns, which Batgirl throws out. He identifies the rings each victim was wearing as a symbol of the 9th Legion, a social club dating back to the time of the Caesars. Batman faxes them a list of the 5 members who live in Gotham, one of whom is Bruce Wayne. Another is Jack Drake, who is attending a ceremony in his honor with his wife Dana, his son Tim, and Tim's girlfriend Stephanie. Eddie pretends to be an employee to bring Jack backstage, but really he steals his clothes and goes on stage pretending to be him, which is when the 9th Legion attacks. Rather than killing Eddie, the Legion kidnaps Drake and drives off with him. Jack is found in his underwear in a supply closet, and Batgirl and Green Arrow are joined on the case by Robin and Spoiler. And then the climax is Batgirl 32, Morituri, November 2002 cover date.
Deponent infinitive. It's great.
Just throwing it out there. Writer Chuck Dixon, penciler Damian Scott, inker Wade Vaughn, Grawbadger, colorist Jason Wright, digital Chameleon. Batgirl, Connor Hawke, Robin, and Spoiler track the 9th Legion down to Jupiter Plaza. Tim calls his father. Jack tells him that a supposed Claudian descendant has been sending threats to the 9th Legion, demanding to know where the Eagle of the 9th is. Agrippina has Eddie Fires, whom she believes is Jack Drake, tied down on a cross, and she threatens to crucify him unless he tells her where the eagle is. And he refuses, and they lift the cross. Agrippina believes that with the magical powers of the eagle, she can restore the Roman Empire. That's what I'm trying to do all the time.
Yeah.
Green, just without the crucifixion. Green Arrow shoots Eddie free, and a fight breaks out between the 4 superheroes and Agrippina's 9th Legion. Agrippina's electric weapon starts a fire in the building, and everyone runs to safety except her. Batgirl wants to save Agrippina, who happens to be playing a liar at the time, but Robin stops her. Batgirl reports to Batman that she did not see Agrippina die and cannot be sure that she did. She asks him whether the eagle is real, and he confirms that it is, and that Jack Drake has it in a closet at his house.
In a golf club set.
I know. Oh, dear. Okay. Whew. So we shall start off. I like to go through the covers and show the covers and talk about that a bit so we can we can see what your art background is like.
My art background? Oh, gosh.
I'm just kidding. But no,
yeah. Go on.
Go on.
Now, while you're looking for it.
Yep.
Chuck
Dixon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me, why could he be including Roman history on this? Like, what's Chuck's background? Yeah. Like, what do you know about Chuck that would allow this?
It's funny how you say that.
You've surely met him, right?
Oh, I have met him, and I've interviewed him a couple of times as well. I don't think he has a classics background. So I think this is just a fun idea that he's coming up with. It's an offshoot story before we get back into heavier tales with Batgirl. So I think it's just, he thought of something fun that he wanted to do. Now, he's a pretty prolific Batman writer. At this time, he's writing Nightwing and Robin. His time on Birds of Prey just ended. So him being on Batgirl is a little strange. We just got off of a long run with the original writer. So there are also some weird stuff there's one scene in particular that doesn't make sense given what the previous writer did with Batgirl here. But otherwise, he doesn't really have the expertise, I would say, so I don't know him personally, but I could ask him like, hey, do you know Roman history? But this is potentially just what you could get from Googling, but we'll see.
Oh yeah. But I love it. Like, I love that he's bringing this in. I'm just kind of wondering his background, or if or he just read as a child the novel where this did come from, really. But anyways.
That is kind of interesting. Now, there is a Batman villain named, I think it's Maximilian Zeus, and he's all about the pantheon of the gods and everything. So it could be at least maybe stemming from that there's already a gateway into using Roman history, culture, and mythology. And so he decided to pull from it. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, and it's so similar to the mythology. Like, this is modern mythology and modern stories and narrative. It goes right along with it. So absolutely. It's really fun to see them actually kind of mixing it up.
For sure. We could actually go issue by issue if you wanted to, because there are some things I want to talk about in each anyways. So we'll start with 30. We can start with the cover of 30 and then go into it, because I know that the preface has all this too, the prologue. Thoughts on the cover? Were you interested in the story besides me telling you that you had to read it by looking at this cover?
I loved it as soon as I saw it. Yeah, for sure. Like, that's what made me intrigued. And it really was different. We see like a really stylized, ancient, there it is. Okay. Yeah. There's the prologue.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, but you were talking about this cover. Oh yes. Yeah. This cover kind of confused me because I was like, which one's Batgirl? I'm kidding. But this one looked really terrifying. And I was really still trying to understand what was Roman about it. And so I was like looking at her clothes and what was going on with that little flower that she's wearing, like kind of almost like a tutu. But
that is her utility belt. Is that what you're talking about? You're about to be canceled. You're the first canceled priest ever.
I'm sure that's not true.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not true.
But yeah, this intrigued me. The next page is really what got me, though.
Okay, when you open it up, yeah. And I would just say, like, this is a dynamic cover. It's fun. You can't really tell what's going on. You wouldn't know that it's Roman history from the top. I will say, coloring wise, the same grievance I had in the previous, I think 2 episodes ago, is that Connor Hawke should be darker skinned because he's part Native American. I don't know, recently they've been consistent about making him really Caucasian looking. So that's my only gripe about this. But okay, yes, this is what you're talking about.
It's the Italian fascist racist stuff coming through
That might be true.
The Aryan purity coming through. Okay, yeah. This is what really got me. I love this. I love how these guys are all massive. You know, in every army, you have tiny guys who are short like me who, you know, can still fight in an army. But no, these guys are just huge. I love it.
Which I guess makes it all the more like, how do they lose that eagle if they all looked like this?
Because the Britons were even larger.
That's very true, as we know from good old Caesar. The history here, do you want to talk about the Ninth Legion?
Yeah, sure. So the Ninth Legion is a real mystery, and it still is. Like it really is something that historians disagree about, and we don't know. There is a legion within the Roman army. They're all numbered, and you know, that goes up into the 20s. And the Ninth Legion was one of the more famous ones, and ones that, especially in this time in the first century BC and AD, came to real prominence. It was made up mostly or historically of Spanish mercenary soldiers. They were actually, I don't know, do you know this, Stella? They were one of the legions that Julius Caesar took over in Gaul. It was one of his original 3 or 4 that he took at when he first took legions in Gaul. They were his legion. So these were real seasoned soldiers who had been, the legion itself had a lot of prominence for quite a while. In the story that we're kind of getting up to is the mystery of the Ninth Legion is that they disappear. And we have small bits of references to them until around 120 AD. And then we have nothing. And then in the early 200s, when some of the historians went through like a more systematic review of Roman armies, and they gave the present day legions, the Ninth Legion is left out. Literally goes 8, 10, 11. They're not there anymore. They've been totally wiped out. And there are some strange references within Roman literature, one of them, and this is what this is referring to, is that we know they were sent to Brittany, to Britannia, and we know that during the conquest of Britannia, the Britons had some very successful fights against the Romans. Especially a little bit later in like the 120s, 130s. We know like when Hadrian went to Rome or went to Britain, there was some serious fighting in which the Romans had large losses, but we actually don't know. No one recorded whether that was the Ninth Legion that was wiped out or not. And so historians have gone back and forth. There's people who say, oh, no, they were sent. They did fine. And they were sent to like, you know, Judea during the Jewish revolt in the 130s and they got wiped out. And others say, no, they got sent to Parthia and Persia. And they were in the Parthian War with Marcus Aurelius and they got wiped out there. And then others say, no, they really did die in Britain. It seems to be the most reasonable just because there is no evidence of them elsewhere. And it seems reasonable that they probably were taken over in Britain. They were destroyed completely, and they were never, because of that loss, they were never restored. They don't just like replenish the Ninth Legion.
Yeah. And there's
That's
like a shame factor there too, right?
Oh yeah.
Especially,
Huge.
you know, losing the standard of the eagle at that time would have been like, oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing. So there's probably another reason, like maybe they thought, I don't know, like it would be bad juju to start something up again for within a legion that had such a disaster happen to it.
And the Romans would totally think like that. Yeah. They were very, very superstitious. And, you know, within like 100 years before, we have the same thing happening this is when the Romans go into Germany and the Battle of Teutoburg. This is like in like 9 AD, I think. And they have 3 legions lost, completely wiped out. And that's when they send this general whose name becomes Germanicus, and he goes back to Germany, destroys the Germans, and he comes back with 2 of the 3 eagles. And that guy became one of the greatest Roman generals ever. And because of that, so it was a huge deal to them. It already did happen. So we know that they really cared about this. And the eagle was the sign of Roman power. And so you had to go back and get it. If you lost it, shame.
Yeah. I'll always remember that one section of Caesar's on the Gallic War and how there's a soldier that's about to be killed. And before he dies, he launches the eagle back within the camp that they just left because, yeah, their life is not worth as much as that eagle or the standard that the legion's carrying. Right.
And it's weird for us in our modern days because we don't consider signs. Well, we don't think we consider signs to be like really important or that they actually have true meaning. And obviously, okay, I am a priest. I'm not going to turn on a sermon here, but this is like, we often talk about this, that signs really do have meaning to them. I mean, look, we live in Charlottesville. Look how much crazy stuff has happened over the statues. Why? Because they really do mean something. People argue about what they mean, but everyone recognizes that they really mean something. And they can represent a great evil. They can represent a great good, but not just represent, but actually be it. And so here, this is what the eagle is like. I'm bringing that up because that's what these signs really mean. And these eagles really mean. It's like, that's Rome itself. It's the sign of Rome. And if you lose it, you're forsaking your homeland, you're forsaking your people. And I would actually think that the Romans would consider you should die.
Yeah.
If you lose it. Yeah.
So a question I had, I guess for the end, once we get to know Agrippina and everything that she's doing, was just how extreme and fanatical she is. Just from what you've been saying, does it make sense then that with how much the standard and the eagle mean to people, that this situation could in fact arise and it's a believable situation for the comic book world?
The situation in the sense that someone would want to think it has like a special power and want to restore it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I believe it with even now. Like, I love this. Like, why not believe that? We don't have to be in a comic book world. This is reality. Yeah, let's go. I think it makes total sense. The only thing I'm confused by is that their other eagles were lost. It's not like, and so that's where I want to make that clear. Like, this is not the only eagle that was lost. And so this is what leads me. Well, we'll get to this later. See, I'm skipping it. I get really excited about this. It leads me to think of, it points to her character a little bit more, of which Agrippina she is.
Okay.
And it could mean, so here's the other thing. Germanicus, that guy I talked about who restored 2 of the 3 eagles.
Yep.
That's Agrippina's dad. Did you know that?
The elder or the younger?
The younger.
The younger. Okay. And I know the younger is the mother of Nero.
Yeah. And we can talk about that. And she's the wife of Claudius.
Right.
The cripple.
Yeah. So it does make sense if it probably was the younger. I think timeline wise too, even though the elder was also technically within the Julio-Claudians. But yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards the younger as well. But I did.
There's some other reasons too. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Overall, with this prologue, would you say that it's pretty accurate? I kind of squinched my eyes about the archers from Syria. I wondered if they would actually have been a part of the 9th Legion or not.
Yeah. There's a lot of little things in there like that. There were definitely archers from Syria within Roman armies. Were they the one in the 9th Legion being sent all the way up here?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Yeah. Because Rome had a lot of issues going on and they had to defend many different borders at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so if there's a group from Syria, they're probably going to keep them in the Judea region because there's huge revolts going on at that point.
I thought it was a bit strange to pull them like such a distance because you would almost want to keep them close to the province. So I'm glad we're on the same page there.
I agree.
Okay. Let's see. I mean, any thoughts as I'm kind of like flipping through, if you've taken any notes? I have some like very particular character thoughts, but it's only going to make sense coming from me because I've been with these characters. So it's more like, so
I want to hear those
as a first time reader, see anything that pops out to you. But this is something. So Cassandra is illiterate. She couldn't speak either. This is her history. The way she spoke is through body language. And so she could read someone and their fight, which is why she was such a lethal fighter. And then this guy came up and kind of arranged her brain patterns. And so she can speak a little bit now. Yeah, so it's interesting that she says, can't read. Best way to learn about crimes is by watching. And I just found this very interesting that Barbara is the one apologizing, like, oh, I'm sorry I brought that back up. But it's really, I don't know. Cassandra already knows she can't read. It's kind of up to her now to be a go-getter and start learning. And Barbara has tried to help her out a bit with that, but she's not been on board. A trope that happens a great deal with comics. Oh, there's the ring. I thought that was a pretty cool thing. By the way, before I even get to that, would you be a member of the social club if it actually existed?
No, I hate secret societies.
Okay. I just wondered. The Ninth Legion. Let's see here. Okay, a trope, for whatever reason, of hero comics is that when two meet for the first time, inevitably there's a fight. And I found it really interesting that Cassandra is fighting Connor Hawke here and takes him, which it really does seem shady. He's in the wrong place at the wrong time. There are arrows with the murder. So yes, if you put two and two together, it makes sense. But for someone who can read body language and the fact that he's talking to her and saying, listen, we're on the right page or the same side, I'm shocked that she would continue to fight him. I think this is not necessarily knowing, and this is poor Chuck, as you call him. His name is Chuck, but it's just weird. You just like name him all the time.
I don't think it's poor Chuck. I think I'm really impressed by Chuck.
No,
actually.
You didn't say poor
Seriously.
Chuck, but because he's dropping in midway, he might not fully know the Cassandra Cain character, but I think she would know right away that Connor wasn't lying and his body language would talk. So this is an unnecessary fight. It's just a trope, I think, in comics. And it's also shocking, knowing Cassandra as I do, that she could get, well, I think he wouldn't be able to do this to her, to capture her two arms. I don't know what's going on there. And then the fact that she got snuck up on, I think is also unrealistic. But we saw later on that she was actually feigning her concussion. So I can go along with it.
I think that's like, it like pulls it together in a sense, like it saves it. But I think you're right. It doesn't really, it doesn't carry through on her character the rest of even just in these 3 episodes.
Yeah. How would you, this is a tough question, but just with these 3 issues, how would you describe Cassandra, or what kind of did you pull out from her character? Because this is hard. Like, I do feel bad throwing you in, like, just midway.
No, I had to look up. I did not. I was like tracking. It was
okay.
And then when I read that, wait, she can't read. I was like, what in the world? So I had to look up things then. And it was hard to get in at first. But then once I read just a kind of brief overview of Cassandra's life, then I was like, okay, got it. And then it all made sense. Yeah, it was a little bit hard to jump in on these 3.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, but it's been fun. So
totally like this guy, the cop guy.
Oh yeah, Fire's here. Yep. And they just pal around. He's kind of like an unlikable guy, or someone that you like to maybe not like, but he seems to just be really capable and kind of a super spy at times too.
I like Eddie. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got some good humor as we see him in the next issues. And then we get to finally see Agrippina, for random a butt shot there. Fermented honey. So we're leaning into it here.
Wait, and then on top of the Gotham skyscraper is an ancient Roman villa scene.
Yeah. Isn't it exciting? With some columns, Doric columns, I guess. Oh yes, suspected poisoner. Too soon to tell. Do you want to talk about which one we think, or wait until the end? But here we have her cataphracts. These are the guys we'll talk about.
Yeah, these guys are like Roman samurais, is what they reminded me of. Yeah, we can wait. We can wait and tell really who we actually think Agrippina might be. Yeah,
I was a little turned off. Just like, I thought they would be like super, super, super devoted, and so they'd also be intelligent. But then when she is saying
Right.
then they will join the rest on Charon's barge and make the journey to the valley. They're like, say what? So it's like, oh man, it kind of the veil almost dropped a bit. Like, okay, well, she's 100% in this, but these are just like hired minions that she's gotten, and they're not necessarily all on board. But well, I guess they have to be somewhat on board since they are putting their lives on the line for this revivified, resurrected Rome. But okay.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about the coloring in these episodes?
Sure.
Because it seems to me like she changes in 30.
Oh, interesting.
She's, her eyes, her, the way they do her face, I got the impression that she's like she is a shade, a spirit of an ancient Roman woman who, maybe part of the power of the eagle is to actually like come back and be fully corporeal or something. But then in the other ones, in 31 and 32, she becomes more feminine. She takes on, rather than like a ghostly look, but more of like a human kind of work. Feminine. Yes. You look at that cover. That cover is terrifying. And then later on, she gets these. Yeah. Look at those eyes.
Yeah.
Like those eyes are way more.
Oh yeah.
They're not like empty anymore. So it seems to me like it kind of changed a little bit in how they're trying to present her. And maybe they didn't really know. I don't know. Is her coloring weird?
Yeah, well, even the art style, I guess I would say, since, her eyes aren't just all blacked out, it's more human-like. And then, you're absolutely right about she was completely white and silver, and now we've got some purple and royal blue going on. The penciler himself is the same. The inkers changed, but the colorists were the same. So I think that's just a discrepancy and maybe like a more detail, like maybe there was a shift from 30 to 31 and how Dixon was describing her or how Damian Scott decided to portray her. So I think that's just a really interesting shift that they decided to go to.
Yeah, it was noticeable.
Yeah, especially compared to this right here. Yeah, it really is. Thoughts on this cover?
This is amazing.
Got her thumbs down, like Commodus in the Gladiator film.
Yeah, right. Very good.
Yeah. So now we actually get a sense, I think, of what the story is actually about. And it might still be difficult, I think, for people who are not versed in Roman history to get a sense that there's some Roman history going on in here. But for you and I, I get that whole thing. And then again, pretty dynamic with the fight scene going on below and then up top, the judge.
It's pretty great.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, so this is the cataphract. Okay. So we can, I don't know if these people. So I did have to research them. These were actually people that I hadn't heard of before. Now, I will easily and readily admit that the Roman history part of, or I should say Roman military part of Roman history is probably like my weakest section, which is another reason I had you on.
We were both that way.
Oh, I thought you were better than I. Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I always thought you were better than me.
Oh, geez. Only because of Caesar, like all of the stuff I needed to know, I knew. But besides that, I was just, not that big on it. But so a cataphract, which in its spelling had a PH. So it's interesting that the actual subtitle had an F in it. But it is what it is. Okay, so it was a form of armored heavy cavalrymen that originated in Persia and then was fielded in ancient warfare throughout Eurasia and northern Africa. It actually derives from Greek, which is, let's see here, cataphractus or cataphractus, literally meaning armored or completely enclosed. Heavily armored horsemen. The rider and the mount are completely covered in scale armor. So already I have a bit of an issue because these are all infantrymen that we've seen in this story, not actually cavalrymen. They typically use wield a contos or lance as their primary weapon. We've seen. Yeah,
that's what I was about to say is that, cavalry, it didn't necessarily mean you're on a horse, if you were cavalry or if you were an archer. And so it's kind of confusing.
I think we're a bit out of time with this, if only because it seems like this was late 3rd and 4th century for the Roman army. And this, we're talking about what, 1st and 2nd? If we're,
Yeah,
Agrippina.
except the fact that we're trying to bring back the Roman
We
Empire.
are.
And so maybe she's able to use the best of any age.
That's true.
The best of any age, though, I still don't. I think this is like, I like how the stylized guys in 30 were.
Yeah.
In the prologue. This is, to me, a little bit overdone. And he can't type on that phone. I mean, look at that. He's got like lobster claws. You can't shoot an arrow with lobster claws.
Oh,
but did you notice what their pizza company's name was?
Nero's, wasn't it?
Big Nero's.
Big Nero's.
I think go back to the intro one. You can see the van. Big Nero's.
Nero's. Interesting.
Look at that.
Yeah. So lots of Nero here, which I think
that's a clue.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Yeah. Typically, the Roman cavalry wasn't really heavily armed or heavily armored, I should say. They were mostly lightly armored horsemen, weren't they? With spears and swords.
Yeah, exactly. And also when you talk about like people like the cataphracts who were of Syrian origin, that didn't mean that the Romans then copied them. It meant usually that they would pay them. So it doesn't really even make them Roman per se. It just means that the Romans would incorporate them, maybe not their technology or style, but just literally incorporate the people.
Yeah.
There were changes, of course, but it didn't always happen that the Romans themselves were taking on those changes.
And then final question on them, of course, would be the coloring. Do you think it would be this bold?
I would hope so.
Red and yellow.
I really hope they're that bold walking the ancient battlefield with that stuff on. Love it.
Apparently they were really decisive. Like they would lead charges to break through the opposing heavy cavalry and infantry.
It's amazing.
So it'd be kind of like Red Rover, and they're just ramming them. Oh man, crazy.
It's like Demolition Derby and why you can't use Cadillacs in Demolition Derbies anymore. They're too strong.
Oh, I guess, yeah, they are pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Okay. We're getting more details in this lady. As you said, it was a good point to point that out. Oh, we have the statue. Did you want to talk about the statue here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had a better answer.
That's okay. I did ask Sean. I said, Sean, who is this? I mean, she's really worshipful of him. I feel like it could be any of the Julio Claudians. My knee jerk would be like, oh, well, Caesar, but Caesar didn't really look like that. I don't know. And could it be a god? But yeah, any thoughts?
A couple of thoughts on, I've never seen a toga go that short for a man.
Short in the front and then long in the back.
And long in the back. What is going on? Roman sculptures with the arms. Usually arms had to be supported because they broke off. And so that stance that he's in is really unfamiliar for like a Roman sculpture. I could be corrected. You could probably find one against that. And some sculptors wanted to be bold. Sculptors wanted to be bold, so they didn't arm out. But it's a weird stance as well. Given all of that, I did look at some of the people who I was suspecting it could be. So I was thinking maybe Germanicus, but definitely not Germanicus. The only similarity I could find was Emperor Claudius. There was similarity in the hair. Hairstyles were a really big deal and distinctive features in ancient Rome. So a lot of times you can date or identify a sculpture by their hair, especially by facial hair, if there is any. And so the curly, shaggy hair of this guy could seem a little bit closer to Claudius than to others. Okay. That's my best shot I got, but the toga just really bugs me.
It is very bizarre. They wouldn't have portrayed Claudius either with his clubfoot, would they have? They would have kind of given him an ideal figure.
That's a great question. Yeah, I think they did. And the one I was looking at definitely didn't have a clubfoot. It doesn't mean that there's not one out there. And I would love to be corrected if anyone knows, but I don't think so.
I think everyone can take our word for these things. We could lie up a storm.
Does anyone care?
Well, they've got degrees in classics. So.
Hardly.
Yeah. And then it does say the 9th. So I think that could lend it, to Germanicus or Claudius, probably. It's interesting, though. Why not name it? I guess that would be my other question. Like, what is Chuck losing? Or really, what does he hope to gain by having it a mystery?
Okay, so this is another one point. Like, why then does she come to this guy and talk to them if we can but find the eagle of the 9th, right? So she's she's connected with him, and there is some power that she's going to get that is in honor of him. And so who is she honoring? It was my question. Like, who could this be that is Claudian, that is a strong leader and an emperor? So yeah, it's interesting. Her dad, I think, again, is a really good guess here. It doesn't look like him, but it is a good guess. And he was the one who had restored 2 eagle standards already. And so there's like his search is kind of matched by her search now. But also it kind of makes sense to be Claudius, except the fact that Agrippina, his wife, poisoned him.
Yeah. There was
probably.
Yeah. And the fact that, I serve you. So it's someone who.
Oh, yeah. I forgot
maybe
that
not
one. Yeah,
necessarily
right.
willingly, but it does seem like there is admiration there. So I would say that she never had admiration for Claudius.
Really?
You think so?
Oh, yeah. I think there was. I think Claudius himself was one of the few people in her circles who matched her intellect and her desire of politics and knowing how to rule through not open power, but through real, what word am I looking through? Real, kind of like sinister behind the scenes action.
Okay.
Claudius is good at that. He was very smart. And, he had lived through the Caligula slaughter because of how he played the fool.
That is true. Yeah. Yep.
And
Brutus.
So I don't think, she probably didn't like, his clubfoot. But I think she could have admired him.
Okay. So a mutual respect, potentially.
Potentially.
Okay. So we don't have answers on that, folks, because that statue is never named, but there are some good guesses on our sides.
And Chuck, if you're listening, if you could give us that, I would be happy.
Oh, I should tweet him out and ask.
Give us a name.
Yeah. Give us a name. Tell me who it is. Okay. I'm going to flip through again. Stop me if you have any notes on any of these. I just have 2, maybe 3 character moments. So this is where Cass is leading Eddie and Connor to her lair. I was a bit turned off by her quickly removing her mask, and only because if you peek behind the curtain, she got in trouble about being very careless with her identity by Batman as well as Barbara, and she had to go through this whole thing, and so she's going to protect it and guard it better, and then she kind of throws it off like here. So I'm not sure if I agree with that, but this is a fun scene just with Batman being there, Eddie giving Batman attitude, and then Eddie being sad that his guns have to be thrown away.
Literally thrown away
down on. Yep. And what did he do? He just reblued them, which I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means?
Doesn't that mean to be like put back in active force, like as a policeman?
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. I just didn't look that up. Well, the art has changed for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I wonder why. I'm even looking at Eddie now compared to what he was before.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. I'm not sure what's happening. Shipper, as you know, I do like couples. Sean knows firsthand that I like to couple, all of my students and everything. And we used to do the same thing, though. We used to watch people as they blossomed into relationships. But having Tim and Steph on an actual date was lovely. And then what do you think about the switcheroo with this whole thing where, let's see, Jack is taken, and then all of a sudden some random man comes out who's not Jack?
I had to read it. I had to read it twice because I'm a slow reader.
No, that's okay. I also had to until I got to the end. I was like, okay, that's what happened.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, it does say that's not Dad. So he was like trying to lead us by holding our hands on this, but it kind of showed me that maybe the writing could have been better right there.
Yeah.
Or at least the sequencing of how it's being portrayed in the frames, because he did have to lead you through the dialogue, like by holding your hand, basically. Mm-hmm. But it was fun. It was a surprise, and I guess it is supposed to be a surprise. So maybe it was successful, I guess.
Yeah. I had to read it a couple of times too. I think this bottom panel is what threw me off, just because you have Jack, you have the silhouette of a man, and then you have the arrow, and so I automatically thought, that's the cataphracts or whoever.
But that's Robin, right?
It was not Robin, Connor Hawk.
Connor Hawk, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. You're fine. Because Robin is still in the audience. So that's the reason
right.
why. Yeah. So anyways, I agree with you that I had to figure out who was this. And then I couldn't tell from the art that was actually Eddie. So that's what also threw me. And then of course the cataphracts are trying to stop him. So I think there's Robin and Steph. And then of course they're going to change pretty quickly. Art wise, internally, what do you think about how they choreograph fights? I should say Damien Scott, how he choreographs fights and shows off Cass.
This part I really liked. I thought this was really cool with all the red arrows against the black. And, the way he's like crossing over the frames here, there's just so much motion in it. And it's just really cool how he's characterizing her by like this shadow almost, but then the red's going in and out. And I really like this one. Pretty cool.
And a lot of it is, which happens frequently throughout this book, a lot of it is without words. Of course, we have that wow there, but don't have much going on just because she's a silent assassin. Anything else on 31?
I think that's it for me.
Okay. That's all I had as well. And then, of course, we've got a big superhero team up.
Yeah. Is this normal? This seemed a little bit over the top, given how cool I thought Batgirl was. Like, what these people?
Now we've got multiple people. Yeah, I would say it's abnormal for a Batgirl book to have more than one person you're teaming up with. Do you think I'll throw it back to you. Do you think the threat level warrants having 4 people, 4.5 if we count Eddie?
Yeah. I mean, the cataphracts are pretty scary and it seems like they've been effective, right? There's only one person left on their hit list. Well, no, 4 or 5, I guess. And they've been going across the country. So it does seem like the threat level is up there. So I just don't know, not knowing the universe here, the world that this isn't, I don't know who those people are. And so that's where, for me, it was like, well, why does she really need that girl? So who is that girl in the back with the O?
Yeah, so that was the blonde girl that Tim was with.
Oh.
So her name is Spoiler. She will become she's Robin for like 2 days and gets fired. And then she becomes Batgirl at one point. But her father, like the main thing is her father was a villain and like not the best of villains, but she ended up being this spoiler to really get him arrested and take him down.
Oh, interesting. And Cassandra's parents were also assassin villains, right?
Yeah. Yep. So they've both had some poor upbringings. Tim is, I suppose, the only one that's not maladjusted. Connor, I wouldn't be able to tell you too
I'm
much
sure there's,
besides being,
Could you please translate the dialogue here into Latin?
No. We kicked your butt. I don't even know. I don't think I've ever done kick. What do you think kick is?
I can look it up.
Are you looking at William Whitaker's words?
But the Wenny Weedy Wiki. This is the famous "We Came, We Saw, We Conquered" Julius Caesar, and now it is in the DC world. Yeah,
and I'm seeing as he's looking up on William Whitaker's what kicked is.
Yeah, so like Veni Vidi Calcatrini Asinum.
Asinitui, Asinos to.
I guess it's plural though too, right?
Wow, there you go.
No, that's singular. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Asinum tuum.
I was excited that in 30 they got all the plurals correct, even a plural neuter, which is pretty exciting, which is an A.
And this is pre Google Translate, so he might have had to actually do some work on his own.
Don't use Google Translate for Latin?
No, I'm just saying though. I know. No, I tell everyone that because it's awful. But I'm just saying he wouldn't, because I think when I encounter it in in comics and in video games, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys just used Google Translate. But this would have been 2002. Right. That's before Google Translate. So he would have had to do some homework on his own. So I applaud Chuck.
This is where I'm saying Chuck's got this from somewhere. I would like to know, like maybe he had a friend who was, into this, and it's cool.
He's got a nerdy friend. I'll be sure afterwards I'll tweet him out and see what he has to say. I also want to point attention to there's a We Remember 9/11 bubble.
Yep.
So I didn't notice that on my first read through. So final cover doesn't have much to do with Roman history, except for the we came, we saw, we kicked your butt. But that wouldn't make sense out of context unless you had read the rest of the story. And just, some sinister looks. And really, I think the big buy-in here is that you've got this big team up of all the teens, not all the teens, but a good portion of the teens in the DC universe. Oh, yes. And the about to die.
I love it.
You are about to die. Salute you. Okay. This is, so everything's coming to his head. Oh, man. Crazy,
this is terrifying.
Okay. Yes. The crucifixion. Pretty accurate?
For what?
I don't know. Well, that he would be tied up. That is, everyone think, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but the vast majority of people think that nails were commonplace, but it really was more often than not ropes.
Yeah, simply just because nails don't work as well.
Yeah. Yep. And then she does talk about the real reason they die, doesn't she? About the suffocation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she does. She gets this. This is where you get a really good insight into Roman torture. They were some of the best in the world creating this, and crucifixion is one of the most sinister, where, it's really painful and very embarrassing. But you actually die drowning, suffocating under your own fluid as your lungs slowly fill up bit by bit.
Wow, you said that's so sinister like.
Pretty awful. Well, we talk about crucifixion quite a bit, so
it is true.
I would also, though, comment that it would only fill up, though, your lungs when you're actually stood up and crucified, not when you're having a nice, relaxing spa
like this
under infrared lights.
Yeah, the
trident.
I know. Very interesting. Yeah, she's got some bruisers that don't necessarily follow the theme, it seems like, though they'd still have masks on.
Yeah, we're getting,
Okay. This was an interesting scene. This was what I really disagreed with. Yeah, where they're talking about Cass once Cass is away from them, which is rude. But Connor says she's really different. Steph says she's weird. And Tim says, spoiler, in a nice way. And Tim kind of defends her and says she has a lot of issues. And Steph says, like eBay has a lot of auctions. So what draws me away from that is because she has had really strong issues, Cassandra has, with both Tim, and by issues, I mean stories, with Tim and Steph separately. And they've reached like really deep understanding of one another. So this is, I think, just another flaw that, Chuck has jumped in here after the character has been on her own path in a particular way. But this is something that I don't think they would have been saying because they have all become friends. Connor's the only one that's the outsider that hasn't really dealt with Cassandra that much. But this was just a really weird scene for me. Okay. So we're getting, now he's upright.
Now he is.
Yep.
But so once you're upright, typically it takes a couple days to die, though, from crucifixion.
Did she say like it'll be
speeding
hours?
Up the process.
Oh, she's speeding up the process. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It seems like that, right? Because now he's basically it's getting difficult to breathe. No, well, no, it wouldn't get difficult to breathe for quite a while.
Yeah. So story wise, we're trying to, speed up the pace. He does call her Caligulette, which I thought was fun. He called her Xena earlier on. Yeah.
And so Caligula is her brother, and he became emperor and is famous for many things, but mostly for debauchery and pointless murders and just awful stuff. Yeah. Agrippina is his little sister, if it's the one that we think it is.
Indeed. We get a brief history lesson again, just to bring Tim up to speed.
Yeah, which is interesting now, drawing wise, because now the Eagle standard has changed from what it was in the preface of 30, where it had a Luna signate on it and some other things. So, I guess we have to trust that the credits are right, but it does seem that there is some significant drawing changes during the time.
Some inconsistencies there. It's also interesting that the statement, this woman believes there's a power in the eagle that is her birthright. Just the fact that culturally, the woman would very much not have such a birthright, but she's really breaking out of that and feels like she deserves it given who the parentage is, and then her husband as well.
And it makes me point to Agrippina the Younger, who once Claudius, her husband, dies / is poisoned by her, she and her son Nero is too young to actually take on full responsibilities as emperor. She is the first true Roman empress. She really is. She governs and takes on certain authorities that no woman had ever taken on.
Hashtag feminism. Because she's a poisoner, or at least once. Do you think that's why her skin is so pale?
It could be, or that I think she is the ancient woman herself.
Okay. Oh yeah, as you said, kind of seeking, kind of like her spirit, and she is seeking bodily form.
Something like that, maybe.
Yeah. I noticed that her clothing changed colors again. Now it's blue, light blue, rather than the blue purple. So
and the white, purple early on. Yeah, I was trying to think if there's any significance there. So she ends up dying in real, historically, she dies because her son Nero kills her by trying to drown her. And when that doesn't work, he just sends soldiers to cut off her head.
Mommy dearest. Yeah.
I know. And now we have the toga and the sculpture draping over the other shoulder.
It's changed.
Yeah, it has.
Can't tell. The word bubbles in front. Can't tell about the length of the toga.
Well, but the arms are totally different too now.
Yeah.
So maybe she has just lots of these, which is pretty typical.
Yeah. She's laying down like a good Roman does while eating.
Except, do you notice the mistake?
Is she on her wrong arm?
Yes, she is. She's eating with her left hand, which was literally the word for left in Latin is sinister. And that would be, the left hand was considered not to be correct, but also to be unclean, because when you use the bathroom, you would wipe yourself with your left hand. So culturally, nothing was eaten, greeted, or done officially with your left hand. And so here she is eating with her left hand, and
that's a no.
But when you're a soul that's been wandering around for 2,000 years, you forget this stuff. So
that's true.
Let's give her some breaks.
Absolutely. Okay. So now we're just moving into the climax, big fight.
Yeah. I love the arrows. They do them so well. I really like that.
We're just flipping through for listeners here. And then luckily, because I did have a question, that this is a Batgirl comic, but we got this full blown team up. But it is nice that in the climactic fight that Cassandra is the one fighting Agrippina. I think that is only right since it is her book.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I love Agrippina's words for her. I think maybe it's here or a little bit farther down or the next page, where she then calls her, like, she actually kind of respects her, right? Because she punches her and she says, "Kill the gladiatrix." Yeah. And that's a really great term of respect there. Like, she notices that she's the best fighter out there.
Yep, absolutely. I did note that as a, literature nerd, the story almost grows with the different people joining, like a Tricol and Creskins, because you've got Connor, and then there's Connor and Eddie, and then it's Connor and Robin and Spoiler. So
love it.
Getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yep. So things are on fire for whatever reason. Agrippina pulls out a lyre. And then she really does look otherworldly at this bottom panel on page 19, just the flames all around her, and she's just plucking away. Do you think she survived?
I think Cassandra leaves that option there. And so I am going to follow Batgirl's senses over any rationality that I might have.
I do like how, that's definitely about a Cassandra thing, that she never wants anyone to die, no matter who they are. So the fact that she is willing to rush into these engulfing flames and try to save Agrippina, that's spot on character-wise.
And what do you think is the significance of her dying or, disappearing here by fire?
Well, yeah, especially with the lyre, just because I think it is a myth that's not necessarily true, but that Nero played his fiddle while Rome burned in order to make room for his golden house. So I feel like it's another nod potentially to Nero. And then
Right. And Nero's her son, right?
Right.
Nero's her
yeah.
son.
Yep.
And then go back a couple. She has this great line when she starts the fight with Batgirl. She says, "I won't be defeated by kids." Is that what she says? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I will not be brought low by children, which is really ironic if it's Agrippina the Younger. And this is where I think this is why it's kind of fun to think about her as this, is that Agrippina the Younger was killed by her son. And so here she is like fighting again and be like, no, I will not be brought low by children. Then Batgirl defeats her, wants to save her, unlike her own son. And then she dies in the flames like Nero, or Nero didn't die, but in that way.
Yeah.
So in a sense, like still dying in the hands of Nero, her son, by these kids.
Yep. Oh, irony. And I do wonder about the cataphracts. Well, they're stripping, which is interesting. They're actually pulling off their gear, potentially to make a quicker escape. But you kind of wonder like, oh man, is their job over now? Do they have to get back to the real world? Are they going to be minions for the rest of their life and try to find another villain that they can find job with? I don't know.
Yeah, I was really hoping that they were also ancient people brought back to life. But it seems that's not a tenuous or plausible.
Just with, I mean, some people I think really play into it. Like this one guy is saying, what about exalted Agrippina? And then the other's like, ooh, she's on her own, pal. But the one in the first issue, not knowing about the.
Yeah, right. Not knowing about the sticks and come on. Everyone knows that, right?
Yep. And then, so we didn't see her die. That's normally, in TV and things like that. It's normally a nod that this person might be alive. I have no idea if she pops up again, but I did research her and it seems like these are her only appearances. So I think she might be gone or just waiting for another time that she can resurrect Rome. And then, we find out that of all people, there we go. Jack is the one who had the staff and Tim is looking at it as well. And then it's true. You actually talked about this a lot in your classes. Tim says to his father, you said it was a myth. And then Jack says myths have to be based on something, Tim. And that's something that I've talked about as well. But people would always, or students would always come in and be like, Mr. McDermott said that those gods probably really existed. And I'm like, okay, kids. But I mean, it is true that because tales have transcended time and peoples, like there had to have been someone that's actually based off of.
I think there's always the tendency in modernity to look back and be like, well, they weren't as smart as we were, or just like, you see what they believed. But if you take a look at our own culture, we have some really weird stories that we tell and some really weird ideas for sure. And so looking back, like, I think like, no, these people were much more like you than you could ever believe. And if they're in the modern world, they might, still fight like Agrippina and, do all that sort of stuff. But back then there was in all myths and all stories, there's an attempt to understand the world around them. And they do that through stories, through narratives. But a lot of those narratives have a truth to them. They all have some sort of truth. They all participate in truth. But even the events in them are, some of them, quite true. So, and I also, because I'm a sucker for good stories, it's like, why not believe that they were real? It just seems so much more fun. And then the world kind of opens up a little bit more. And that's the other thing is we kind of shut everything down and flatten everything out. And I think it's a lot more fun to view the world in a more dynamic way where there's interacting forces and there is direction, but there's also freedom and there's also chance, but there's also some sort of fate, not in the sense of determinism, but there's like a drawing towards an inevitable end. That's what makes these stories really fun.
Yeah.
So why not believe that they're true? Yeah, I do believe in all the Greek gods and goddesses. It's just that, they're not the only ones out there and they were created. So take that.
Take
Zeus.
that, Roman mythology. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I wouldn't love, I think, Latin as much as I do if it didn't have this world attached to it. Like, that's definitely one of the draws to it. It's just like this puzzle and this time capsule that brings all of this unique stuff to it. And yeah, it really has opened my eyes too, and gotten me to ask questions too.
And that none of it is totally separated either. That this is what mythology gets right, is that the created physical world is one and the same together with the created spiritual world, right? It's not like there's the material world and then there's the spiritual kind of out there, separate, and sometimes it comes down. No, God created physical and spiritual together at the same time. So all creation is this interaction of spiritual and physical, and they're not separated, and they're also not against each other, which the Romans did. Some of the Roman philosophers thought, but not all of them thought that. I don't know. So I won't go there.
Yeah, for a podcast at another time.
Yeah, or a different podcast. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I love this stuff.
So I guess 2 final questions then. Roman history wise, how well do you think this story succeeded?
You know, I really like that Chuck went for this. And so there were little things missing. I think what happened is that there's a lot of discontinuity between Chuck and the artist, Damien. See the Damien?
Yep.
Sorry. I think if Chuck and Damien kind of talked a little bit more together, I think it would have been like an 8 out of 10. But because there's those other things that weren't supported by some of the pictures, I think I would move it down to a 6.5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe a 7.
And that's for Roman history?
Harsh, I guess. Yeah, that's for the Roman history and the how they're depicted.
Okay. Then the more difficult question, since I just kind of threw you in there, but what are your thoughts on the story as a whole?
No, the story I love.
Yeah, and the pacing and all that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's what I love. I love that they're bringing in like this random legion that even historians have no idea about, and that really did go missing. And I love that sense of bringing back a real true Roman idea of signs and symbols and power. I love it. I think that works great. I don't know if it freaked out other Batgirl readers who actually read Batgirl way more than I do. And I should read it more, but I love that part.
Okay. So overall, what would you give this out of 10 cataphracts?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have no experience in this, so
it's just whatever you think. If this were a project that a 7th grader gave you, that he taught at 7th grade.
Crap, this is a 10 out of 10. Like, that's amazing. It's amazing. And I think maybe that's the way to look at it, right? Is like, did this work as an inventive kind of entering into or bringing 2 worlds together? I think it really worked. I think it was fun. And in what you were saying, and what surprised me is how many other characters had to come to assist Batgirl and how it brought together her whole world, basically, because Batman gets involved too. Yeah, I'm going to rate this pretty high. I'm going to go to a 9.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't give it out of 10 because I don't have anything else to compare it to.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that Batman, you said he gets involved, but he doesn't get so involved that he actually appears to help fight it. So
does he do that in other ones?
It depends on the people. So like, for instance, her father, David Kane, whenever he's involved, Batman's definitely there because he doesn't really like Cassandra to interact with her father. But otherwise, I mean, she has her own agency, so he lets her go. So I think similar to that. Yeah, I think because you had all those characters, it really shows the threat level is high. I like the thought of resurrecting Rome. I think about it all the time, what it would be like. We practically had a Julius Caesar in office for 4 years. Come on. Let's be honest.
But remember, let's be honest, that if you enter into ancient Rome, this is what we always played in our classes, right? It's like you have a 2% chance to be the Roman that you actually would like to be.
That is also true.
Everyone else is living quite miserable lives.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, the 1% are living it up and everyone else is a slave.
Yeah.
That's
literally the majority of people in this country. Do you have international listeners?
Potentially, yeah, I'm sure.
Wow. Well, and to those international listeners out there, even you, if you're listening to this podcast, you live a materially comfortable life on par with, if not better, probably better than any of the ancient Romans.
Oh.
Even Agrippina and Caligula and Claudius better than them.
Better than them.
You don't agree?
What are your
Materially comfortable?
materially comfortable? But international, like every nation though?
If you're listening to this podcast, yeah.
Oh, okay. Meaning you have the means to listen to it.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Yeah.
So you already have power, right? You already know, you can read, you can, interact in this way. Oh yeah. You live far away and above than probably even Roman emperors.
Yeah. And definitely then they're the province that they are currently living in, probably.
Ooh, yeah.
At that time, I mean. Yeah.
That was tough.
Yeah. What else was I going to say about this book? Oh, yeah. Just a couple grievances in terms of characterization of Cassandra. Like I said, with the friends and everything. But it was fun to see them together. And yeah, having Roman history appear in a comic book that I'm reading, can't go wrong with that. I think I only have a couple like, oh, maybe that's not necessarily so accurate, but I think we can give it some grace for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad Chuck went for it.
Chuck went for it. Yeah, I will tweet out to him. And if he responds, I'll be sure to let you know what he says. And then when I record the second half, I can also tell the peoples. Well, do you do a blog like Father Jerkins, aka Perkins, does? I was just this is usually the time where I'm like, how can we support you besides going to your church?
You don't need to support me. Yeah, no, Father Jerkins, that's our project. The earthaltar.org is our project for, the millions of Anglo-Catholics out there who read our stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. By
what
millions.
was it again?
Earthaltar.org.
Okay. Because I spoke over you, so I didn't want to. Okay. It has been a pleasure. You came on.
Thank you. It is my pleasure. But you're welcome.
It was a lot of fun. Yes. And I'll let you know if you get more viewership than Eve. Says apparently it's a competition. The Anglican versus the Presbyterian.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, we'll have to catch up and not just by running into each other randomly on Rugby Road.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Stella. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, when I come back, I am going to talk a little bit more about Six the Musical. I'm going to give you some news. I'm going to also go through an interview that Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad did with DC Comics. And I will cover some modern quickies, including Batman and Nightwing, and also some letters, some emails. But first, it's Zayas' Radio Hour featuring X-Wise from Six the Musical. So we are back. I did want to talk a little bit more about Six the Musical. I didn't want to do it when Father Sean was on, just because it's one of those situations where the other person did not experience it and you're just talking about it. But I cannot more highly recommend seeing and experiencing that musical. I loved it. Claire loved it. I had only heard 2 songs from it prior to actually experiencing the musical. And I remember seeing the album, but it seemed unfinished. Like maybe there were only 8 songs or something. I thought, well, I'll just wait until the whole thing is on. And Claire, I remember, had listened to it too. And I said, are there really only 8 songs? She's like, I don't know. And then when we got our playbill and we're in the seats, we're looking and we're like 70-minute runtime. And so I'm a bit bummed about that. I mean, the experience in being in the seats and just waiting for it is amazing, but also you're paying hundreds of dollars potentially to see a Broadway musical, and you want a long time. I'm used to 2.5 hours or so watching a show. And I will say that this theater, I don't know if the theater did seem smaller potentially, but the bathroom lines were insane. And I ended up going in the men's bathroom because I thought, I'd like to go. I don't know if I'll make it during the intermission, so might as well go now and then hold it and everything. And there was no intermission, so it didn't even matter. But I'm glad that I did go to the bathroom. So where to even begin? I fully understand, even once it began, but definitely more so afterwards, why that show is 70 minutes, because it is high energy from start to finish, even though there are a couple ballads. The women are out there the entire time. There's one time I think they go off in order to, maybe 2, in order to get some props, some clothing props. And if each of the wives has their own special number, but if you are not the prime singer, you are behind that wife, and you are, I should say queen, but you are adding backup with vocals, with movements and everything. So they're just on the entire time. And also the band is all female too. So it's just completely female, which is lovely. And gosh, yeah, all of the songs are really interesting there. Of course, for Zai's radio hour, I let you have or experience, I guess, Ex-Wives, which is the title song, and where they begin and they end with it to a certain extent as well. There's a really weird song that's also amazing and fun called House of Holbein, which I think I'll put it at the end of this episode because it's just so wacky, and being in there and experiencing it was so crazy. And each of the wives in the playbill, they go through, and very clever in how they do it, who the wife is, whom she was played by, and what her skill set is or what her goals are. Like some of them might be like skill set staying alive, or someone's goal was to stay alive. And then it also says musical inspiration. So each of the wives is inspired by a contemporary singer. So Jane Seymour, for instance, who has a slower ballad, her musicality is influenced by Adele and Sia. And later on, potentially my favorite song is All You Want to Do, and that's by Catherine Howard. And she is, or her inspiration, or her musical inspiration is, there's someone else, but I know it's also Ariana Grande, and her look definitely also takes on that Ariana Grande as well. So yeah, it's just great that there's this banter between them, between songs, and then the songs themselves have double entendres. For the most part, it's pretty clean, but Claire and I were discussing, would you take your kid here? And I'm like, man, it's pretty close. It's kind of like cartoons that are made for kids, but there are adult innuendos and jokes that you can get. And so there's a lot of that for sure. So House of Holbein is really fun. Ex-Wives, of course, just starting off really hot. All You Want to Do, I really like it, but it was such a tonal shift because you're just high, high, high. I think it comes right after Anne of Cleves, and that one's pretty peppy and like feminist because she's like, I'm the queen of the castle. Get down, you dirty rascals. And then we have this one, Catherine Howard, so Me Too appropriate. And it's like high energy. Yeah, it's got that pop rock to it. And oh man, it starts off, she's 13, her first like sexual encounter is with this 23-year-old, and she thinks like, oh yeah, it's love. That doesn't work out. There's another one. She thought that was love, not going to work out. Henry VIII, she's not too excited about it. And then there's another one. And yeah, this is a 650, I think, or 7-minute song with 4 verses in it. And it just gets more and more intense, so again, 70-minute show. This is why. And I even saw some of the singers sneak. I think she was one actually sneak some water before going on. And absolutely, you would need to do that because you've been singing the entire time. And now you've got this 7-minute solo. But she gets to the final guy, and it was just this, I guess, kind of a right-hand man to Henry. And she feels there's, no chemistry. It's legitimately friendship. And then he's like, I want you, basically. And she's like, I thought this was different. And so it just gets, it gets worse and worse and worse. And then the movements themselves, the other queens are touching her and grabbing her, and it gets really violent, and she's trying to pull away. It's really intense, complete tonal change. I felt uncomfortable about it, but I really love that song. I think it might be my favorite now, which originally I think I may have said that Catherine of Aragon was my favorite song and singer, but just well worth it. Well worth it. I would definitely see it again. I've listened to the soundtrack multiple times, so highly recommended. Happy news. I was trying to think about what the happy news, actually a couple of happy news is, because it's taken me so long to record the second part. I think I said last episode that I applied to grad school, and I just found out I got into grad school. So that was super exciting. I'm looking forward to what this journey is going to be like, and challenges ahead. And then of course, what this journey will lead to in my final destination, and finding that community that I really want to teach. Birthday just happened. I went skydiving for my birthday. I'm going to have to post the video, I think, on the Batgirl the Oracle YouTube page so you can see it. But it was a lot of fun. There was certainly a moment that I was on the edge of the plane looking down into the abyss, and I didn't have long to do it because he's like 1, 2, 3, and then we went off. But I was pretty freaked out just for that moment, and I think the action immediately after jumping. But after that, just euphoric, calm. I don't know if that contradicts itself, but yeah, just a sense of euphoria and calm, and not thinking about anything else, like anything outside it. I could have been cold. I don't even know. It was just this moment of being and existing. About 60 seconds of free fall, and then the chute went off. And then maybe 3 to 5 minutes of floating. And he was showing me different places far off in the distance and around. And so that was great. I really enjoyed it. No regrets. My only regret, I guess I would say, is that I wish someone had gone with me, but I was trying so hard. And originally I was going to jump on a Friday, and just people were working and couldn't get off. But then high winds caused my jump to be canceled. And then I rescheduled it right away for Saturday and did it then. So, oh man, crazy. Okay. So now I think that's it for the news. I would like to, let's see, how should I order this? Let's do listener emails. So listener emails.
Mail time. The mail's here. Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
I have 2 of them. One of them is from Ian Prime, aka Ian Miller. Unfortunately, he sent this to me a long ago, but I was going through my emails and I'm like, oh my goodness, Ian, I'm so sorry. So anyways, here we go. Dear Stella, I've been catching up on the last few months of Batgirl the Oracle, and it seems I missed a lot of episodes featuring a lot of Stephanie Brown. Not just in the modern comics, where James Tynion and Tom Taylor are featuring her leading up to the Batgirl's ongoing series, about which I'm extremely excited, but also in the great Batgirl 26 and 28 and Birds of Prey 42, where you see Steph proving herself against the Shiva cultists, proving herself able to push herself incredibly hard while Cass is training and impress Black Canary. And you've also finished the Chuck Dixon era Birds of Prey. I'm still so pleased to have been invited to assist you in covering the wonderful Lazarus Pit arc. Definitely my favorite after the Hunt for Oracle storyline. But I am very, very excited to see what happens when you finally hit the first Gail Simone run, especially given your extremely insightful noticing of the parallels between Oracle's approach to Power Girl and Black Canary. I'm very curious if you think that Babs' approach is a negative action by her or a positive one. Do you think that Babs is more interested in what she can get by manipulating her fellow heroines who are in a bad spot, or if she intends to build them up to the best of their potential? And if you think there's a difference, given that there's some manipulation involved in both. I'd also love to know what you think your favorite non-Birds of Prey number 8 issue or arc was during this 4-year run. Looking forward to December when you'll be able to cover another Batgirls title, and hope that it's much, much better than the one which we covered together last year. Smiley face emoticon, yours, Ian Prime. Thank you for writing in, Ian. See, I didn't forget about you. It just got lodged in notifications. So that's really interesting. So he's talking about when Barbara reached out to both Power Girl and Dinah, I don't know, I did that, to Kara and Dinah, or Power Girl and Black Canary, in order to say, hey, your life looks like it's a bit without direction. Why not come on board? And whether, that was manipulating or not. I think Barbara is the type of person who always has multiple reasons for her actions. And I think she thinking multiple steps ahead potentially. So it's not, think of all probably the characters or heroes out there that may be directionless, but she looks at some of these really capable heroines. So for example, someone that may be directionless that Barbara did not reach out to necessarily would be Huntress, I think. Though it depends on the era, I guess. But that could have been somebody. But number one, Barbara doesn't want to deal with that woman. And number two, she doesn't really align, I think, ethically necessarily with Barbara's belief system. And I think maybe skill set not as uniquely talented or gifted as Black Canary and Power Girl are. Power Girl, of course, has the superhero skill set, and then Black Canary is such a skilled martial artist. And I guess that would primarily be maybe what she may have gone for. And both of them have team experience too. They've been on teams, which I think is something else that Barbara would have looked at, because if these women that she's looking for don't work well or don't play well with others, they're probably not going to take command well. And since Barbara is sort of the armchair leader, you have to be able to do that. So I think there are multiple reasons. I don't know if I would necessarily consider that manipulation, but it's going to serve her purpose. So I guess potentially. But I also think that Barbara is a woman that all women should be like, that is looking to bolster and support women that are going through a tough time. And competition is not in the forefront of her brain. And she's not going to laugh at, the detriment of others or where others are. So I think because she wants to support others, I think she probably did look at Power Girl and Black Canary and see that they're in a bad way and they are directionalists. And how can I reach out and help these women? I think to a certain extent, she probably could see herself getting along with them, because that's another part of just team dynamics, right? Whereas Huntress, there's no way, no how. So I think, I guess it's kind of the both and that you had there. There was a purpose to it. I think she saw several yards in the distance of how this could work for her, but she also wanted to support those women who were really having a tough time. At least that's what I see for Barbara. I think if it were like Amanda Waller, that woman is going to do something else entirely. She's not really for supporting others, period. And it's all about how can she benefit and who's the best team for what she needs to do. So I think if I were to look at that, and like that's the best way almost, is to pick someone that's the polar opposite. And you're like, oh yeah, Barbara is doing this, I think. But she's not perfect. I think that she does have other goals. And as for your other question, which was about my favorite, I think if I were to look through all of these tales, I would definitely say probably Hunt for Oracle, just because I had read that before. And I think it's just so monumental in Barbara's history as well as Dinah's, and then just bringing those two together and then, everything leading up to it. And then, of course, really breaking down that impersonal barrier and now creating this intimacy between them that leads them to such a strong relationship. So that would be my answer right there. Okay. Thanks, Ian, for writing in. And then also I reached out to Chuck or Chuck Dixon in regards to some of those questions that Sean and I were thinking about. So I asked him 2 questions. I said, what gave you the idea for the story? Well, I should say 2 subsets of questions. I always do that to Tom. What gave you the idea for the story? Have you had interest in Roman history or culture? Do you have a classics background? He said, no formal training. It's mostly a toy soldier fascination with the Roman Empire, literally. See attached photo. Though I've read all of Tacitus and Plutarch and a lot of other writers, which right there, I appreciate your nerdyism. And I see all of his soldiers, which are a lot of fun. My second question was, who is the statue that Agrippina speaks to in her rooftop villa? Sean and I narrowed down the possibilities to Germanicus or Claudius, assuming this is Agrippina the Younger. And he said, it's been a while since I wrote that story, but my first impulse is to say it's Germanicus. And I thanked him for his time and his art. And he said, thank you. Cool questions. And then, of course, I forwarded that to Father Sean. So there you go. So thank you, Chuck, for answering those questions. And that reminds me that I need to reach back out to him and see if he wants to come on and talk about his tenure on Birds of Prey. Okay, so that's it for listener emails. Remember, you can always write in batgirltheoracle@gmail.com. It's been a bit of a dry spell, but here we are. Okay, so there is a Batgirls interview that DC Comics, I think specifically Alex Jaffe was the person who conducted it, and Alex speaks to Becky and Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad. So I thought I would go through this in case you hadn't seen it. So let's see here. The concept of an all Batgirl series seems like an obvious home run. It's something that a lot of fans have been asking about for years now. Why is now finally the time for Batgirls? Cloonan says, I've heard it said once that you can't rush a miracle. I think sometimes things take time to happen. We were very happy to be asked. Conrad says, I think publishers and editors are used to hearing people say, oh, I'd love to see a series of something. And then it'll happen and people don't show up for it. So I think it's getting harder now for fans to say, hey, I'd really like this thing. And then to actually see it happen in a reasonable amount of time. But I do think the principal actors within Batgirls have shown that they have a pretty strong fan base, and putting them together and watching them interact with each other has been really exciting for readers and certainly for us. How did you both first fall in love with Babs and Steph and Cass? Conrad says years ago as a reader, just picking up various Gotham books, I would be excited anytime they'd show up. My relationship with the characters is just like any reader out there, Becky says that's really good. And Conrad said, did I give your answer? There's more. I feel like there's other stuff. With the comics, it was probably Gail Simone's run that got her hooked on the character. Batman, the animated series. And the next question is talking about the relationship between Cass and Steph being at the heart of the book. And it's not really been explored much since Cass's 2000 series that we've been doing. And how has it changed in the last 20 years? How did Cass and Steph become so close? Conrad says some of that is going to be revealed as we share our story and our version of these characters. One thing that we came into this book with was we want to show healthy relationships. We wanted there to be real dynamics there. We wanted there to be some tension and drama, but in reality, in my relationships with the people that I love and care about, I don't ever punch them ever. Okay. That would never be a thing that I would think to do. So we wanted to do that. We wanted to show a happy relationship. One of the points that I always make is the movie Step Brothers. I always thought that the best parts in Step Brothers were when the two main characters were getting along rather than when they were fighting. The fight scenes were neat and fun, but I felt like that movie had its funniest moments when they were getting along. So we want to do a story about people getting along, within the confines of superherodom, where, yes, there's going to be a lot of punching and kicking, but we're going to try to direct it the right way. And furthermore, it's about female characters. And I think there's something to be said for female characters on a page getting along rather than being catty and weird with each other. Not necessarily groundbreaking stuff by any means in regards to showing healthy female relationships, but I think comics have room to grow in that department. And Cloonan says it's definitely a comic about friendship, and we're going to explore all the relationships. That's one of the things we want to focus on in this book. Next question is, how do you see yourselves exploring Steph here as a character in her own right? Cloonan says it's great when you get to write a character who is very well defined, but with Steph, there's still so much to do with her and so much story to tell. It's so much fun to think where we're going to put her in the future and the things she's going to learn. I love having a character with that much potential. This is almost a betrayal, I would say, since didn't Steph already do this multiple times? But here we go. Not to say that they don't all have potential, but they're also developed. I feel like Stephanie, it's a lot of fun to think about her. Conrad says, I think it's easy to compare her and look in contrast. It's easy to say Cass is probably a better fighter, or, Babs is probably better at doing detective type things. And part of the reason we can say these things is because these are central motifs of these characters. With Steph, there's room to be really dynamic with her. We know we love her. We know that she's pretty darn good at many things, but we've got a real opportunity here with this series to show that these are the things that Steph does best. These are her singular central motifs. And these are the things that moving forward, everyone around her will be measured against. Speaking of Cass and Steph's previous individual Batgirl runs, can we expect to run into any friends or enemies from their first Batgirl tenures here? And what about new faces? Conrad says to say yes to both of these. For us as fans, there are definitely faces that we want to see again. Also, I see what people are saying, and sometimes it feels good when people say, oh, I'd love to see this character again, when we've already got pages in the can with this character. As far as new characters, we can't get away from new characters. That's part of what's neat and dynamic about Gotham, is the endless potential of there being new, strange characters showing up. Cloonan says we're coming in right off of the heels of Fear State. So it's really cool to take what they've done there, the whole magistrate stuff and Simon Saint, and really dig into characters that have come out of this very contemporary Gotham. But also, of course, we want to use the classics. There's room for all of it. And Conrad says maybe some characters that some people have forgotten about, some characters that have shown up in past Batgirl comics that really meant stuff to us. So I don't want to spoil. But there are characters who are really going to delight people when they show up on the pages. I'm hoping for some deep cuts. Oh, what is this? This is garbage. There's a sense to all three of these Batgirls that each of them adopted the bat symbol on their own accord, not waiting for Batman's permission or endorsement. How is the mantle of Batgirl different from Batman or even Robin? Conrad. Batman's the person who came up with this bizarre idea. And naturally, he's taken on Robin, and it's kind of a thing that just continues to bloom. And as it blooms, there are offshoots of the same family tree. So where the original Robin may be like the sun, we're now getting into territory where if we have our druthers, we'll be getting into like the weird second cousins and stuff. There are Batgirls that are very connected to Batman, and then there are ones that aren't so connected to him. Cloonan says, yeah, they're also like a sisterhood, There is that element to it, I think, that they're doing it on their own. It connects them, all these characters. They've all been characters other than Batgirl. They've had other identities, but at the same time, you're always going to be Batgirl first. You might be a spoiler, but you're also going to be a Batgirl. And the same with Oracle. Oracle is also such a big part of Babs' identity, but she's also Batgirl. I think it's not the sort of thing that you shrug off. You become one, and then you just are one. Okay, Barbara, here we go. How do you plan to address Barbara's relationship with mobility and disability in Batgirls? Cloonan, we are addressing it, I think, pretty head on. Right now, Barbara has a chip in her back that allows her to walk again. But in our book, she has off days. She's got bad days. So we'll see her use a cane. She does use a wheelchair occasionally. She's got days when she's just spending some time under her desk rearranging all the cables, And I think anyone would want to spend the rest of the day sitting down. So I think it's just natural. We don't make a huge deal of it because it's such a big part of her character and her history. It's not like we want to beat the readers over the head with this idea, but at the same time, we want to show that it's still part of her character. She is still disabled, even if she doesn't always look like it all the time. She can walk around, but it's still part of her. Conrad says, and we love that she's become an icon for this community. It's a community that we really want to serve. We're going to do so to our greatest ability without necessarily creating a different character entirely in our book. We can't have her running and jumping through, ventilation shafts or whatever in one book, and then in our book have her be a representation of someone with different mobility skills. It's just a continuity issue. That said, I've got a past in working with people who have mobility challenges, and like Becky said, it doesn't always present in a way that becomes central to a character, and it shouldn't be. It should be that the central thing going on here is her awesome character and her great personality. And then if we can also show her physical norm is different from maybe your physical norm, my physical norm, then great. And if it's something that people can identify with and feel empowered by, we would love that. And then Cloonan finishes, and that's what we're here to do. When we first got asked to work on Batgirls, one of the things we pushed for was, hey, we want to show Babs in a chair again, but she's just going to have some days where she needs to use it. It's such an integral part of her. Oh my gosh. So as long as we're here celebrating Batgirls, I want to bring up someone we sometimes forget. There's one person who used the Batgirl name before Barbara, a girl by the name of Betty Kane. I also call her Bet. You got any respect for the OG? I disagree with you, Alex, mainly because that was a Dash Girl. Also, isn't Bet still Firebird? So I'm confused about that. But anyways, Conrad says the book's called Batgirls, it's just called Batgirls, which means the door is there. And when I see a door, I'm a curious person. I'm going to open that door and see what comes through. So I suspect we aren't going to spoil anything, but the book's called Batgirls. Great political answer, Michael W. Conrad. And then Coonan says there's also characters out there who could possibly be a Batgirl and not have been one yet. So we've got ideas. We've got plans. This right now is the very start of things. And if people like it and it goes well, which I hope people do, and I hope it does, you'll see there's a lot more. And that's a call out, right, to the fans that we do absolutely need to buy it and support this so that it continues, because we've been clamoring for it for years. Ugh, okay, so there you go. News as you have it. Okay, so now we're going to get into the quickies and just 3 issues today. I did look at, rather skim, Urban Legends, but Babs was in one panel. It just wasn't worth it. So we're going to start with Batman 116, Fear State Part 3, writer James Tynion IV, artist George Jimenez, and colorist Tomu Mori. I don't know why I even did that. She doesn't appear in the main story, but of course we've got the Batgirls Part 2 backup, which is called Set It Off. Writers Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, artist George Corona, and colorist Sarah Stern. With the Batcoms unreliable, Oracle has instructed the Batgirls to stay in the clock tower while she and Nightwing investigate who's behind the Oracle network hacks. But with the magistrate's forces instructed to attack the clock tower, will the Batgirls make it out before it's too late? Okay, here we go. I was just going to say about that one guy, Magistrate 01, Peacemaker 01, that I feel like his villain design is pretty cool, or antagonist design. Maybe he's not specifically one, but with the burning and everything. So just some comments here. Batgirls is now known as a terrorist cell, which I thought was pretty interesting. Some great quotes. I don't know if it's here or not. Yeah, so the terrorist cell known as the Batgirl. So they've really stepped it up, I guess. Oh, this is what it is. I really love this. Batgirls never surrender, right? They can tell there's some bad stuff going on. They're clearly outmatched and outgunned just by sheer numbers and firepower. But Cass is all about that. Batgirls never give up. There was something, or surrender. There was something I did notice that Cass has the same, what would be the cadence of speaking, or similar, I should say, not the same, that we've seen in her title in the 2000s. But if you go over to Nightwing, which of course I will, she speaks pretty flawlessly. And that's something that I wish would be more consistent, but you can see her taking some pauses. Okay, what else do we have here? Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. There's this woman, Grace O'Halloran. O'Halloran, yeah. Dramatic on and off the camera, I have to say. And there's this one panel where it's Grace. Seems like a lot of work. I felt like she meant seems like a piece of work, a lot of work. I'm not sure. And I guess she's commenting on Grace, that she's a bit dramatic and high maintenance. But I have a sense, because I think Grace pops up in the third part as well, that this woman is going to be a minor character. And I guess maybe our go-to newswoman in the Batgirls title. And she's just so much. She's extra, as they say, that I think she will be a comical side character. A dramatic April O'Neil, maybe. I like how in this scene they're up at the rooftop and then they change into civvies to get out of there. Certainly pulling a Spider-Man, I feel like, and changing clothing and having their clothing in a bag with them and then having to climb down and everything. Overall, I really liked this point. And these 3 parts, right? Because leading up to it, you've had mostly Barbara's perspective and then other people's, but just really creating this intimate space, I think, between Cass and Steph and us as the audience, I thought was really great. And seeing what they've been getting into, and of course the clock tower situation, how did they get out of that, as well as what's it been like to be on the run from the magistrates and on ground level, because Barbara and Dick have been off doing something and Bruce has been off doing other stuff. So it's just been really fun to see that. And then overall, yeah, the last page, I really love this, that, these two girls, they've got to come up with a plan, and it's hard and stressful, but they're together, and Cass hugging Steph at the end and saying, we're still the flipping Batgirls. Always, we'll figure it out. So I think that interview, asked the question about this relationship, and I feel like we've already seen it. So it's not like Cloonan and Conrad are inventing this relationship, but I think they're just further developing what we've seen before. And I think also giving us nostalgic feels from the Steph and Cass way back when, when they were training together and whatever that was, Cass, Batgirl, maybe 28 or something like that. So as we see that, I think that'll be a lot of fun. And I know that I don't have the cover up. They showed all the variants for, I think there are 4 different variants from the first issue of Batgirls. And one of them, Donovan, had commented, this one is really shipperific, because I think they're like reaching out to each other as they're swinging through the air. And, potentially that, I don't know what I would think. I have nothing against it if they do, but it's also the trap that I don't like. And I think I've spoken of this trap before, that I'm all about shipping and romantic shipping as well as platonic shipping. But one of the reasons why Babs and Dinah erotic or romantic shipping gets my goat is because I feel like just because 2 women are friends, some people assume that there's got to be something more to it. And it's just a lot of pressure, and I feel like it's less romance and more like outside titillation of like, oh, see, those 2 girls are really close. They must have some sort of eroticism going on. And so that's why I don't like it. Why couldn't they just be, strong female friends? But I guess we'll see what happens. Okay. So next up is Nightwing 86. Nightwing, of course, is a fan favorite of this host. So this is Fear State Part 3. Writer Tom Taylor, artist Robbie Rodriguez, and colorist Adriano Lucas. Nightwing and Babs have fought through the fear-stricken Gotham streets, but now their fight takes them to the skies above Gotham, with the Batgirls and Tim Drake, in parentheses Robin, as if we don't know, in tow. Now aboard the Magistrate's Skybase 01, they have made it their mission to bring the airborne Leviathan down, prevent Seer's disinformation from being broadcast, and save the innocents aboard. But in this paranoia-stricken city, not everyone is who they seem. Okay. So, of course, remember that the previous Batgirl had ended with the clock tower exploding, and everyone thinks that Steph and Cass are dead. And we know better because we've watched, but here we are. And so they go right to the rubble, and luckily, Steph and Cass call Oracle, and everything is good, and they're all safe. There is something funny where Steph actually calls Babs out for using the real names on the radio, and that's absolutely correct. You probably shouldn't do that no matter what the state of crisis is in Gotham. But I kind of excuse Barbara because she was in a state and she's very nervous that her mentees were dead. And also, if you notice, Stephanie Brown has a Burnside College hoodie on, which I thought was fun as well. When they all reunite, there's some joint hugging, which I love very much. Let's see here. What else is there? Which, just Bat Family reunited. Love. This is great. This page I love so much. So Dick is pointing to the sky base that they need to go up there. And Tim is saying, okay, how are we getting up there? Oh, unless you 2 want to do this alone. And of course, Steph and Cass haven't been around to know what's going on here or what the change in relationship status is. They haven't been on Facebook, aka Meta, recently. So Steph says, why would they want to be alone? And Tim says they kissed. And Steph basically is me, like, oh, finally. Oh my gosh. And Dick says we're launching an attack on a hostile force. Do you think we want to be alone for that? And Tim says, I don't know what you find romantic. Babs is face palming. Can we please focus up? And then Cass says, good kiss. Babs says, yeah, it was good. And then Cass says, good. Now focus up. So that whole page was marvelous. And I appreciate it, obviously, as a Dick and Babs shipper. Okay. They have this interesting plan where, of course, they're going to get some suits. Oh, very similar to Star Wars, right? Where they have to get some suits to infiltrate the sky base. And you have Steph and Tim being the people, I guess, that act as bait. And then all of a sudden, they all mug the people inside of the suits. And so the irony, obviously, is that this is what the Bat family would be cracking down on, mugging. But when I saw Steph and Tim teaming up, you know what I thought? Does Steph know about Tim's relationship change? Or have they talked about that? I'm not sure. Who knows? I wonder what that would be like. I mean, they're professional, so they're working well together. But because last I knew, before the most recent thing, they were in a pretty serious relationship. I wonder what that would be like. Okay, so here we are. They're suiting up. And I remember there was this one. I really like this splash page. This is page 14, at least on mine. And I guess you can't necessarily call it a splash page, but it is a full page image of the Bat family, helmetless, because of course they're fighting others that look like them. So we don't want to confuse the Bat family from the bad guys, and just all working together. So Seer, of course, is taunting them. And if you look, this is page 16 on the top right, that is Seer right there. And so it's really interesting that Seer was up with the kids in the same room as the kids. And it just begs the question as to how she was able to speak to the Bat family without the other kids wondering what was going on. And it couldn't have been pre-recorded. I'm looking at you. I know what you did last summer, TV show. It couldn't have been pre-recorded because all of this was in reaction to the things that Dick and Barbara were saying and the Bat family were doing and things like that. So I'm not sure about that. I don't know who that particular person is. I'm going to call her a kid, and I think it's a her. I'm going to call her a kid, but yeah, I don't know. She kind of reminds me of... Well, it does say she can't hide from us. Kind of reminds me, I think the character's name was the General, who was an antagonist in Tim Drake's history. But it's interesting. Golly, just think about Babs and her nemesis being like 10 to 15 years her junior, and what that would mean. That changes a dynamic, like a villain hero dynamic. I'm going to have to think about that. It works if it's because I assume she's going to be the first antagonist or the main one for the Batgirl's title. So it works because she's probably comparable to their age, but really she's going after Oracle, and that seems to be her mark. So, Barbara versus a child just seems so strange. Okay, well, I'll consider that. If you have any thoughts on whether this is an interesting dynamic or whether, I don't know, not inappropriate, but what that means for Barbara that her nemesis is a child, let me know right into batgirl.oracle@gmail.com. I love this as I scroll back that Barbara was the one to hack the sky base, and then Nightwing was the one to crash it. So a team through and through. And then also I think playing their parts and how it affected them, and also them being the ones to bring it down because, their family has been in duress and being attacked by this. Then we have these two having some funsies. And my first question is, why has Babs removed her cowl? I mean, anyone could potentially, imagine a ferry boat just rolling by or floating by, as it were, and seeing Nightwing with his cowl on and then Barbara right there. Who even knows? But Babs is all about taking Seer down. So we'll see what happens because it's going to be continued in Batgirl's #1. And then the final thing that we are looking at is Batman 117. And this is Fear State finale. Oh, and we do see Barbara at least arrive with the gang here. I wasn't really going to talk about this at all, but this makes more sense now. I read them out of order. I went 16, 117, and then did Nightwing, but now it makes sense why they have these particular suits and everything. But I am going to, there's a shipper. I forgot about that. Yeah. So Harley and Poison Ivy. Oh, here we go. I think this was kind of what I was talking about. He reminds me of like Michael Myers mixed with Jason and just the burning and everything. I mean, he looks this is Peacemaker 01. Sorry for those not seeing, but he just seems so formidable. And the burn marks add very much to that. Okay. Oh, happiness. Look at that family all together. Kate. And then add in some other people's like the Signal and Harley. I like that Harley's kind of part of the Bat family now. Okay, here we go with the Batgirls part 3 of 3. Can't hardly wait. Hashtag Tom Panerese's favorite movie, I think. Writers Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, artist George Corona, and colorist Sarah Stern. After what happened in the Magistrate's Skybase 01, nowhere is safe, and the Batgirls hide out in a hotel room until Babs arrives, offering a plan for their future. Seer, the anti-Oracle, is revealed here. Technically, she was revealed in Nightwing, but we'll go with that. And who they are will make you question everything you see moving forward in Gotham. So should I know who Seer is? Because I don't know. So... oh, yeah, the Grace person right here. I ask it right here. Is this Grace person going to be a minor character in Batgirls? I hope so. I mean, this woman just blurts things out and she's already live. So it'd be really interesting. It's pretty fun. So they're in this hotel called The Holmes, and I don't know who's doing the stars rating, but maybe they're just checking in to see how it is, but it keeps going down and down and down. So day 2, it's 1.75. I think it just keeps going on. There was a comment at one point, someone threw I think it was like a TV out at the window. So that's a fun little strain that is going through. The Batgirls are going to be roommates, which is super exciting. Barbara comes in to let them know that she's looking for a place and she's found it. Until then, of course, Barbara actually leaves Steph. Is this the one? Yeah, she's leaving them with each other, Steph and Cass, to fend for themselves in this dingy room. And then she's going to go crash with Dick, which they seem like animals. This seems like a really problematic area. It is really dingy and it's very small. It's like living in a studio apartment with 2 people and they can't even leave. So that's problematic. She does come back and say that it smells pretty bad. I don't want to think what you've been doing. And then she just leaves them to it and goes off on her own, which both is terrible of her, but makes me laugh. I mean, why does she's an adult. She doesn't need to suffer with those kids. The comments on the Holmes Hotel are pretty funny, as I said. This was weird because it's, oh gosh, the Holmes 1-star literal hell, and then a half a star I hate it here. It's interesting because you'd think these people would leave, but sometimes it is what it is and you just got to stick it out. What's interesting, oh yeah, there it is. The next morning, someone threw a TV out the window. The star went up. That was a 1-star. So Seer, of course, appears to them. So she is able to, pretty powerful. Man, I can't wait to see more about this person and how they're able to do what they do, but able to basically pop in wherever. And that's why the TV gets thrown out of the window. So Bab sees them and I don't know, 12 hours pass maybe, because it says it's the next morning. But she's making it seem like it's even worse. Like, what happened here? Steph and Cass seem like they're not lethargic probably, but like delusional. Like, what's happened? You know, we haven't seen the light in days, but it's only been 12 hours. So I don't know why it had gotten so bad within half a day. But here we are. I like that Barbara is wearing a Nightwing sweat jacket, and of course, she's got the keys. It's time to go. I feel really sad for the housekeeping who has to clean all that stuff up, but maybe they don't have housekeeping there. And then they're going to the Hill. And I should say that the Hill, throughout this entire story here, this particular part, there have been a bunch of victims. So I think not only are we going to have the Seer, who probably, whoever she is or they are, I don't even know. I think that'll be like the big bad. That'll be across arcs maybe, or several issues. And then I think in the beginning, we'll be trying to track down who is the killer in the Hill or at the Hill. And of course, Barbara would, moving day, of course, Barbara would pick the worst place to go, like the highest crime, like, hey, we can clean it up, can't we? So there you go. So after all of that, that is the lead up into Batgirls. So I said, I think initially that I couldn't really fully review or give a grade on just one piece. I wanted to see how it all worked together. And to a certain extent, those three parts were pretty disparate. I think the first one, right, was when Cass was on the run, and then Steph pops up. And then the second one is about the clock tower and them being on the run. And then the third one, they're all holed up in this hotel room. And if you think about it, not a lot has actually happened. You could almost make it, well, I guess it was a backup, right? So you could put them all together to make an issue, but it really was just set up. So I feel like if I were to grade it, it would probably be rather low, if only because not much has happened. But I think you get a sense again of the relationships between the primary three Batgirls that we're going to be talking about. It gives us exposition for where we're going to land in Batgirls #1. And then it fills in the gap, of course, with what's happening throughout Fear State and where these ladies are. So I don't know, 6 or 7. I mean, it's really unfair because it wasn't a cohesive story. And I don't know that it was necessarily intended to be. It had to bridge the gap between different things going on in Fear State and other books. So, but this one was a really funny one that I would probably give an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Dismal hotels. But yeah, maybe a 6 or a 7 overall. So, next month, Batgirls #1. Okay, on to my anime watch list. I did watch 2 anime. First, I watched Cowboy Bebop, the 1998 series, which is 26 episodes. In the year 2071, humanity has colonized several of the planets and moons of the solar system, leaving the now uninhabitable surface of planet Earth behind. The intersolar system police attempts to keep peace in the galaxy, aided in part by outlaw bounty hunters referred to as cowboys. The rag team aboard the spaceship Bebop are 2 such individuals. Mellow and carefree Spike Spiegel is balanced by his boisterous, pragmatic partner Jet Black, as the pair makes a living chasing bounties and collecting rewards. Thrown off course by the addition of new members that they meet in their travels, Ein, a genetically engineered, highly intelligent Welsh corgi, femme fatale Faye Valentine, an enigmatic trickster with memory loss, and the strange computer whiz kid Edward Wong, aka Radical Edward, my favorite. The crew embarks on thrilling adventures that unravel each member's dark and mysterious past little by little. Highly recommend. That was my second watch, and I ended up watching it all with Donovan, which was a lot of fun. And then we watched the live action, which I do not recommend. Don't do it. Do not do it. Do not waste your time. Just watch the original there. And then I watched, and I'm so sad it's over now, Fruits Basket, the final, and it literally just came out, 2021, 13 episodes. Hundreds of years ago, the Chinese zodiac spirits and their gods swore to stay together eternally. United by this promise, the possessed members of the Soma family shall always return to each other under any circumstances. Yet when these bonds shackle them from freedom, it becomes an undesirable burden, a curse. As head of the clan, Akito is convinced that he shares a special connection with the other Somas. While he desperately clings to this fantasy, the rest of the family remains isolated and suppressed by the fear of punishment. I'm going to have to spoil to say why I'm smiling this way. Toru Honda, who has grown attached to the Somas, is determined to break the chains that bind them. Her companionship with the family and her friends encourages her to move forward with lifting the curse. However, due to confounding revelations, she struggles to find the tenacity to continue her endeavors. With time slowly withering away, Toru contends with an uncertain future in hopes of reaching the tranquility that may lie beyond all this commotion. And it got really dark. I think if you remember several episodes before with season 2, it really took a turn in at the end of season 1, I guess I would say, with Kyo and his transformation. And then we're finding out about it. And then second season was really dark, especially with Akito and what she was doing. And then this one starts to level out and has promise, but you're wondering, are Toru and Kyo going to get together? Because she really wants to end the curse for his benefit and everything. And they finally come together and admit their love for one another. And it's more, well, Toru admits her love for Kyo. And then Kyo is like, you idiot. Why would you love me? And so he's got to reconcile with that. And then meanwhile, Akito, the family head. Here's the big spoiler. You should fast forward maybe a couple minutes if you want to hear this, but Akito is actually a woman. And the way she acts, oh my gosh. So it makes sense. Some of the stuff she does with the male Soma family, like you kind of question, like, how many of them does she have sex with? But she is a terrible human being towards the females. And there's, I guess, this understanding that because her mother is so terrible to her, basically she's got lots of trauma towards women, though you'd think it'd be like towards matriarchal women, but it's just all women. And she does terrible things like throw them out of a window or scratch their face with her nails. At one point she stabs someone in the back. That was a man, but she felt like she was betrayed. And then all of this stuff she complains about, like, you don't know how much pain I'm going through as she's stabbing someone. And I have to say that if anyone were a grade A B word, it would be this person. And towards the end, there's some reconciliation. Toru is just a better person than I am. She's really able to reach out to Akito and turn that around and give her love and compassion and companionship and to a certain extent. And Isuza, whom was thrown out of a window, is like, I don't know how you guys can move on. Like, I can't do that. And I'm like, absolutely, sister. So Toru is just above and beyond. But yeah, to a certain extent, I'm just like, wow, forgiveness for this person's got to be really difficult. That would be real stretch. And you know how I strive towards compassion and empathy and forgiveness and grace, but you have to witness everything that Akito did and be like, ooh. And everyone deserves it, right? The grace and everything, but it's just, I would have to work real hard. I'd be on Isuzu, like, for sure, girl. I don't know if I can do it, but I love Fruits Basket. I really love just the animation style. I think for this revivified version, I like a bit more than the older one, but it might be maybe my top 5 anime. I'd have to think about that. So definitely Uran, which shout out to my soulmate, my platonic soulmate, Donovan, for getting me this for my birthday, and Uran High School Host Club sweatshirt, and Maid Sama and Fruits Basket, probably top 5. And then I'd have to think, because there are some that have really stuck with me that I would probably also have to say, but I highly recommend Fruits Basket. And I watched the dub because I liked how it had the originals in there. And OTP for sure is Kyo and Toru. I'd like to find a shirt with them on it. I'll have to look. Okay, so what are you wearing? I kind of did that. And then my last thing is literature recommendations. I'm pretty sure that The Lost Apothecary was what I last spoke of on the previous episode. I will say that I've been reading lots of Amazing Spider-Man by Nick Spencer. I think I've read 12 volumes, so I highly recommend all of those. I read The Things We Cannot Say by Kelly Rimmer. Technically, I listened to it. Wait. Yes, it was an audiobook. That is what I listened to on the way to driving up to Jersey. In 1942, Europe remains in the relentless grip of war. Just beyond the tents of the Russian refugee camp she calls home, a young woman speaks her wedding vows. It's a decision that will alter her destiny, and it's a lie that will remain buried until the next century. Since she was 9 years old, Alina Dziak knew she would marry her best friend Tomas. Now 15 and engaged, Alina is unconcerned by reports of Nazi soldiers at the Polish border, believing her neighbors that they pose no real threat, and dreams instead of the day Tomas returns from college in Warsaw so they can be married. But little by little, injustice by brutal injustice, the Nazi occupation takes hold, and Alina's tiny rural village, its families, are divided by fear and hate. Then, as the fabric of their lives is slowly picked apart, Tomas disappears. Where Alina used to measure time between visits from her beloved, now she measures the spaces between hope and despair, waiting for word from Tomas and avoiding the attentions of the soldiers who patrol her parents' farm. But for now, even deafening silence is preferable to grief. Slipping between No, this synopsis did not even talk about the modern, but anyways, the frenetic pace of modern life. Yeah. So the modern part, I can't believe they didn't do that, is Alina's granddaughter and finding out or going on this journey because Alina in the present day ends up having, I believe it was a stroke. And so she wants to go back to Poland, but she really can't. And so she wants her granddaughter to go there and find Tomas. And there's like all this confusion that I don't want to spoil. And then meanwhile, Alina's granddaughter, whose name now I can't remember, I can't believe they didn't put this in the synopsis, has a son who is on the autism spectrum. And so there's some good, I think, portrayal there. And yeah, lots of conflict though, like between the father and how he's relating to the son, between that mother and her mother, which would be the daughter of Alina. And meanwhile, you find out what has happened to Tomas because they think, well, Tomas is the grandfather. He died a couple months ago, I think like 6 months or something. And you find out that that's actually not true and more about what went on. So I had hopes as we were going on, like, oh, the love survived. And then I was betrayed. Okay. I did reread The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. I feel like I've talked about this before, so I don't need to go through it again. I would say caution because some major and disturbing sexual violence. So if that's not something, I was going to say that you like, if that's not something that you will be able to handle, let's just say that, I don't think you should read it. But you could potentially, if you're able to withstand maybe people talking about it, then you should listen to the next episode of, should be December, the December episode of Required Reading, where I lead that discussion. Okay. I then read Will of Dark Hollow, which ended. It was just a duology and it made me really sad. So let's see here. And this is by Robert Beatty, and still Serafina is I prefer her. But The Great Smoky Mountains, 1901. Willa and her clan are the last of the Faerun, an ancient race of forest people who have lived in the mountains for as long as the trees have grown there. But as crews of newly arrived humans start cutting down great swaths of the forest she loves, Willa is helpless to stop them. How can she fight the destroyers of the forest and their powerful machines? When Willa discovers a mysterious dark hollow filled with strange and beautiful creatures, she comes to realize that it contains a terrifying force. Is unleashing these dangerous spirits the key to stopping the loggers? Willa must find a way to save the people and animals she loves and take a stand against an all-consuming darkness that threatens to destroy the world. So not only fantasy, but I think also some conservationist topics as well, which I appreciate because we are called to be caretakers of creation. Oh, geez. Oh, I better not have. Okay. Whew. I thought I gave this next one a high rating. This is Mrs. Rochester's Ghost by Lindsay Marcotte. I don't recommend it, but I'll read about it anyways to you. Jane has lost everything: job, mother, relationship, even her home. A friend calls to offer an unusual deal: a cottage above the crashing surf of Big Sur on the estate of his employer, Evan Rochester. In return, Jane will tutor his teenage daughter. She accepts. But nothing is quite as it seems at the Rochester estate. Though he's been accused of murdering his glamorous and troubled wife, Evan Rochester insists she drowned herself. Jane is skeptical, but she still finds herself falling for the brilliant and secretive entrepreneur and growing closer to his daughter. And yet, her deepening feelings for Evan can't disguise dark suspicions aroused when a ghostly presence repeatedly appears in the night's mist and fog. Jane embarks on an intense search for answers and uncovers evidence that soon puts Evan's innocence into question. She's determined to discover what really happened that fateful night, but what will the truth cost her? If you want to know my real thoughts on this, folks, you listen to Dear Reader, episode 3. Because I have it out with that. And then the final thing that I read, I just finished it today, was a play that I got from the Drama Bookshop. And I also happy to, so the Drama Bookshop had been around for a really long time in Midtown, and basically like down the street from Midtown Comics. And then I think it just got into some financial troubles and had to close up. And then a bunch of people came together, kind of led by Lin-Manuel Miranda, to be like, we need to have this still. And so they restored it, reincarnated it, but it's in a different location. It's a very cool sculpture up top that also it's a bunch of hanging books basically in plays that goes through in chronological time, I believe, just like fiction and storytelling and everything. But I've had this punch card for the longest time, basically since I first went. I don't know, golly, maybe 2012. That seems even too late. At least 10 years. And I had been slowly accumulating things. And so I bought 2 plays, and then I basically had enough for a free play. So I got this free play. So this is The Inheritance, Part 1 by Matthew Lopez. And I'll read what the back of the play says. It says, decades after the height of the AIDS epidemic, The Inheritance tells the story of 3 generations of gay men in New York City attempting to forge a future for themselves amid a turbulent and changing America. Eric Glass is a political activist engaged to his writer boyfriend, Toby Darling. When 2 strangers enter their lives, an older man and a younger one, their futures suddenly become uncertain as they begin to chart divergent paths. Inspired by E.M. Forster's masterpiece, Howard's End, which E.M. is actually a character in here called Morgan. The Inheritance is an epic examination of survival, healing, class divide, and what it means to call a place home. I really enjoyed this. For me, it was tough in the beginning. And if I reread it, I think it would go better. But there are all these, it's crazy. It's like, there are all these young men. That's like young men 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think. And they're all having discussions about storytelling, and Morgan is there. And then they're like, let's tell a story. And then the story's going on, but Morgan will pop in, and then the young men will also be in there while the people actually in the story are living. It's kind of crazy. So in the beginning, it was hard, but then once it starts going, I'm like, okay, I'm tracking. And you have to become comfortable with the characters, so you're not constantly like looking back and like, who is Toby again? And it's interesting how there's direction like about speed, that it should seem, if it seems like you're going too fast, that's probably right, and that it just needs to pick up, which I forgot to look, because I remember the writer said Part 1 is when Walter shows up. Until then, the play has got to move briskly. Yeah, some of these speeches are pretty long, but there's some really good speeches too, just about, I don't know, maybe what we owe. Well, what has the previous generations done for us and given us? What have we learned from them? And then how can we also do that for the younger ones? And this is modern times too. So there's a scene that they're watching they're talking about, what the future of America is going to be like, when Hillary wins. And then there's a whole scene about all of the returns coming in, and then, the result of all of that and everything. So it's really, well, obviously contemporary, but I think poignant, because we're living in that particular time now. There's, one of the probably saddest moments, but also really emotionally impactful, is it just going through and saying all these men's names, and that they're dead because, or sick, or they've got, something else going on because of AIDS and everything, and just going through and like, this is what it was like back then. So there's a Part 2. I'd have to see what that was about. I remember reading the back of it, but it wouldn't have made sense to me because I hadn't read Part 1. But I do recommend this. I thought that it was really good. So I think that's it. So, okay. Remember, you can send any questions or comments to batgirltheoracle@gmail.com. Relevant is what I was looking for. This is very relevant. Okay, there you go. You can also find the show on Google Play and Stitcher, like the show on Facebook, or follow it on Twitter @BatgirlTheOracle. And subscribe to the show on YouTube for an uncut version, as you've seen, with its flaws, but maybe not next time if I have a new computer. Follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. Once again, thanks to My High Comics for sponsoring Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. Next time, it's my anniversary special, which is exciting. And I'm hopeful that it is my chief Tata correspondent, Professor Carolyn Coca, joining me as we talk some. I want to bring her into the pain known as, what was it? DC Comics First, Batgirl and Joker, which, remember, I attempted to, but just couldn't handle at that moment. And then, of course, Batgirl's #1. So some pain and some beauty, so the grotesque and the beautiful, like O'Connor. Okay, I think that's it. Until next time, fly on, Babs lovers.
Just plain Barbara Gordon, masquerading for a lark as she rides into the night on her special Batgirl cycle. Who knows? Is the dynamic duo destined to become the triumphant trio? Only time will tell us more about this dazzling daredoll.
I love a happy ending, don't you?